Chapter 607. Xiao Su's decision to stay in the Yang residence was made at the last minute. So when their carriage arrived at the entrance of the Lu residence, it was only 2 hours before they arrived at the father city. Everyone entered the residence under Yang Qing's lead. Master! Master! The servants came and went to greet him. But they were more or less curious about the sudden arrival of this group of strangers. When the guards who went to pick up Madam and young Miss of the Yang family were patrolling, they saw these familiar faces and instantly widened their eyes. Weren't these the people they met on the way here? Why did they appear in the residence? And looking at Master's respectful and reverent manner, they seemed to be some amazing people. Some of the Yang family guards who were unkind to Chu Qingyan, and the others were sweating profusely at this moment. Please don't be like what they thought, otherwise their rice bowls would not be guaranteed. Your Highness, you're staying in this courtyard. This official has already ordered people to clean it up. If you don't like it, you can let this official know. This official will go and order people to prepare dinner to welcome you and everyone. Yang Qing bowed and said, then quickly left after Xiao Su nodded. Chu Qingyan looked at Yang Qing's fleeing figure and touched her chin. Big ice block, you clearly didn't show your face. How did you scare him away? You have to ask him about this. Xiao Su sat on the main seat, picked up the teacup, and drank the tea calmly. Chu Qingyan shook her head. This big ice block was really too much. After Yang Qing left the courtyard, he immediately rushed to the main hall. He had already asked the whole family to wait there. He had important matters to discuss. Master, you were nowhere to be seen this afternoon. Did you go to work? Madame Yang was a little impatient from waiting in the hall. Now that she saw her master come in, she began to complain. Yang Qing said anxiously, I went to pick someone up this afternoon. Pick someone up? Who is it? Don't tell me it's some vixen that you've taken a fancy to? Madame Yang immediately stood up. Yang Qing had long been accustomed to his wife's jealousy and loved to let her imagination run wild. Usually, he would let her do as she pleased, but this time, it was a serious matter. Hearing her say this, Yang Qing thought of the Buddha he worshipped in his courtyard and immediately said angrily, What nonsense are you talking about? Do you know what kind of person I received today? If I say it, you'll be scared to death. Yang Yuhuan was looking at her fingernails at this moment. She asked curiously, Father, who is it? The timid young Xiaohuan sat upright and still at the side. She didn't express her curiosity about this matter, and just sat there quietly. Yang Qing looked around the main hall. Seeing that everyone had arrived, he cleared his throat and said, This afternoon, I received news that His Highness Prince Ing was going to make a private visit incognito, so I went to bring His Highness to the residence for the time being. This is a major matter for our Yang residence, and also for the entire father city. Therefore, for the next few days, all of you should behave yourselves and not cause any trouble. His Royal Highness? That ferocious and ugly monster in the legends? Yang Yuhuan exclaimed. Yang Qing immediately glared at his eldest daughter who was blabbering. Is His Highness someone you can talk about? You're already so old. Why don't you know what's important? Be careful not to be heard by His Highness people and cut off your tongue. Yang Yuhuan immediately covered her mouth, not daring to breathe loudly. She was afraid that she would be caught by Xiao Su's subordinates. Then she wouldn't be able to live in peace. Originally, the aide said that His Highness didn't have a side consort, and you've reached the age of marriage, so I wanted to betroth you to His Highness. But after seeing His Highness today, I feel that His Highness isn't someone we can match, so I've given up on this idea. Tonight you all have to perform well, don't make any mistakes. His Highness's temper isn't something we can handle. Yang Qing felt that the aide's idea was okay, but today he was frightened by His Royal Highness' imposing manner. He didn't want to have a son-in-law who could scare people to death at any time. And Yang Yuhuan immediately nodded. Only a ghost would want to marry that ugly King of England. It's best if her father gave up on this idea as soon as possible. The day passed like this. Chu Qingyan leaned against the table, waiting for the legendary welcoming banquet. Big Ice Cube, when the Yang family's mother and daughter see us, do you think their intestines will turn green with regret and they'll faint from fright? Chu Qingyan thought of how the Yang family's mother and daughter didn't like them. It really was a good opportunity to slap their faces. Xiao Su glanced at her, Who was it that said using official business for personal gain? Chu Qingyan immediately pretended to be dead. I didn't hear anything. Master, official Lu invites you to the banquet. Hu Ling stood at the door and passed on the message. Xiao Su stood up and looked at the person who was still lying on the table. He suddenly reached out and patted her shoulder, saying in a voice that only the two of them could hear. This king allows you to use official business for personal gain. Chu Qingyan had just raised her head. When she heard his words, she almost fell down. What happened to being aloof? Xiao Su hooked his lips and left in a good mood. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose and couldn't help but smile. She then cheerfully followed him. On the way, Chu Qingyan sized up the Lu residence. It couldn't be said to be luxurious, but it couldn't be said to be shabby either. It was a proper residence. Previously, when Lu Guang reported about Yang Qing's daily actions, it mentioned that Yang Qing had never accepted bribes. Thinking about it, this should be true. Under the guidance of the servants, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan entered the main hall. At this time, Yang Qing's entire family had already arrived. They were trembling with fear as they waited for this legendary cold-faced war god. When they came in, Yang Qing immediately stood up to welcome them. Yang Yuhuan and the others looked at the two people with fear. The first person they saw was Chu Qingyan, who was dressed in eye-catching red. Yang Yuhuan and her sister, as well as Mrs. Yang, widened their eyes in shock. How could it be this Chu Qingyan? Could it be? The three of them simultaneously shifted their gazes to the masked man in black at the very front. Was this person His Highness Prince Ying? It was simply too unexpected. Xiao Su looked straight ahead, ignoring the gazes of others. Chu Qingyan clearly saw Yang Yuhuan's deflated expression. She felt a burst of joy. Little guy, you dared to casually make a move at that time. Today, I'll scare you to death. Chu Qingyan didn't know that at this time, Yang Yuhuan's intestines were really green with regret. Because she had slandered him in front of the real His Royal Highness, saying that his face was burned by a fire many years ago. If he came out in the middle of the night, he would scare people to death. Moreover, his temper was eccentric. He would kill people at the slightest provocation. He was cold and heartless. Now that he had lost his power, and he appeared as the King of England, would she be punished by him? However, Yang Yuhuan didn't know that if this matter was known by Chu Qingyan, there was no need for Xiao Su to make a move. Chu Qingyan would have a way to get revenge for her family's big ice cube. Yang Yuhuan should be glad that Xiao Su wasn't a person with a sharp tongue. Otherwise, she would have already been torn apart by Chu Qingyan. Just when Yang Yuhuan and the others were on tenterhooks, someone exclaimed, "Brother Chu?" Chapter 608. As soon as she said this, the Yang family members were shocked, especially the mother and daughter of the Yang family. They had already wanted to reduce their presence, but who would have thought that this blind person would not be able to differentiate the pros and cons, and simply wanted to drag her down? This familiar voice made Chu Qingyan look over. It was Yang Xiaohuan, who still looked timid. Chu Qingyan found that she had become thinner in just half a month. He nodded at her as a greeting. Yang Xiaohuan had just blurted it out, but she regretted it as soon as it left her mouth. However, she didn't expect that Chu Yunxing would respond to her. She was so excited that she didn't see the ugly faces of her family and Xiao Su's gloomy face. He had almost forgotten that the Yang family still had Yang Xiaohuan, who admired the little fellow. His face was a little unhappy now. At this moment, Yang Qing noticed that His Highness Prince Ying's face was somewhat unhappy, and he was so scared that his lips turned white. He had been busy for the entire afternoon, and only cared about His Highness Prince Ying, so he didn't notice the person beside him. At this moment, he saw that she was also wearing a silver mask and had an elegant demeanor. He immediately recalled the rumors that His Highness had a capable subordinate by his side, named Chu Yan. He didn't know how his youngest daughter got to know this Chu Yan, and now he regretted letting his youngest daughter attend the banquet. Yang Qing immediately changed the topic. "Your Highness, please have a seat. Young Master Chu, please have a seat too." After they sat down, Chu Qingyan said, "I did not expect to meet Mrs. Yang and the two young misses of the Yang family on the way here. It is such a pleasant surprise to be able to sit at the same table for dinner." Yang Qing was confused. He turned to look at his wife and daughter. You know young Master Chu? Mrs. Yang and Yang Yuhuan did not know what to say. Yang Yuhuan immediately pushed her younger sister out. Let Xiaohuan answer this. Yang Xiaohuan glanced at Chu Qingyan, then immediately lowered her head and replied softly, replying to father, before we returned to the residence, we were with His Royal Highness and Big Brother Chu. On the way back, they caught the bandits and saved us. They even accompanied us to Father City. Yang Qing came to a sudden realization and immediately raised his cup to Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan. I didn't expect there to be such a connection. This official thanks Your Highness and young Master Chu for protecting my family's wife and daughter. Otherwise, with the ferocity of those bandits, I'm afraid they wouldn't have been able to return home safely. Xiao Su ignored Yang Qing's hand that was raised in midair, and instead took the wine cup of the person beside him. He said indifferently, drink some tea. I'm 15. I can drink now. Chu Qingyan was a little unhappy. For so many years, she had been disciplined by the big ice cube, and was not allowed to touch a single drop of wine. After being in ancient times for so long, she still did not know what wine tasted like. Was it as bitter as beer? Be obedient. Xiao Su glared at her, then turned his head to Yang Qing, whose hands were almost sore from holding the cup, and said, give her a new pot of tea. Outside, shouldn't people at this age drink wine? His Highness seemed to treat this Chu Qingyan very differently, because the two of them were whispering just now. Yang Qing did not know what the two of them were talking about. He only felt that their posture was intimate. If he had heard the content of the conversation, he was afraid that it would not be as simple as treating her differently. Chu Qingyan looked at the wine cup that was pushed to the side, then looked at the new teacup that fell in front of her. Her heart was filled with anger. Could they still have a proper meal? Yang Qing finally drank the wine that he had been holding for a long time. He sighed inwardly. This His Royal Highness really did not play by the rules. Yang Yuhuan, who was at the side, after the apprehension and the worry of her scandal being exposed, found that His Royal Highness turned a deaf ear to her. Moreover, after this matter was mentioned by Chu Yan, it was forgotten. Her heart was greatly relieved. Now she also had the mind to deal with the matter in front of her. It turned out that the man with the appearance that could topple cities was His Royal Highness. It seemed that the rumors could not be completely trusted. Moreover, he did not look fierce. At least, he treated his subordinates amiably, especially that Chu Yan, who was simply very trustworthy. As for her previous speculation that he liked male pets, at this time, she rejected it. With such a noble background and peerless appearance, how could he be a short-sleeved man? Moreover, there was still a princess in his residence who had never been seen. Therefore, Yang Yuhuan firmly believed that she must have misunderstood the King of England. How could he not like women and not like men? After seeing Xiao Su's true appearance and learning of his identity, Yang Yuhuan's thoughts began to stir again. Previously, she had been rejected because His Royal Highness was not such a casual person. After the matter, he did not pursue her actions, and was even willing to accompany her all the way to her father's city. Therefore, could she believe that he actually did not dislike her and was only shy? Moreover, it was not legitimate, and that was why he had rejected her that night. There was a type of person who, when their heart was expecting something, would use all kinds of reasons to look in the direction of their expectations. This was a classic case of hallucination, and Yang Yuhuan was a severe sufferer of this disease. Yang Yuhuan secretly glanced at Xiao Su, her heart thumping. If she told her father that she was willing to marry His Royal Highness, then with her identity as the first daughter of the prefectural magistrate, would it be legitimate? Just as this thought floated up, Yang Yuhuan made up her mind. After the banquet was over, she would tell her father. This was a talented and good-looking husband, who could not be found anywhere. It must be heaven's mercy to let her meet him. If this marriage was successful, it would be a beautiful story. Chu Qingyan naturally did not know that Yang Yuhuan was narcissistic to this extent, and still had delusions of having ideas about her family's big ice cube. At this time, her obsession had already turned to tasting wine. Big Ice Cube did not let her drink, but she insisted on drinking. She secretly took the wine cup that was placed on the side, wanting to take the opportunity when he was not paying attention to taste it. However, Xiao Su, who knew her like the back of his hand, had long noticed her unwillingness to give up. When he was talking to Yangqing, he snatched her wine cup and handed it to the servant behind him, warning her with his eyes. Since there was no more wine around her, Xiao Su was relieved to continue to talk with Yangqing about the development of her father's city in the past few years. Xiao Su did not know that for some people, the more you repressed them, the faster they would rebound. At this time, Chu Qingyan was annoyed that there was no wine to drink, but a wine cup was handed to her from the side, and her eyes brightened. When she was about to take the wine cup, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. She turned her head and saw young Xiaohuan, who was smiling cautiously. She revealed a puzzled expression. She only heard young Xiaohuan whisper, "Xiaohuan saw that big brother Chu wanted to drink, so she secretly gave it to you. Don't let your family's highness find out." After saying that, she immediately retracted her neck and pretended that nothing had happened. Chu Qingyan was amused by her actions, and a genuine warm smile appeared in her eyes. She quickly changed the teacup and raised the cup to her, silently saying, "Thank you." Chapter 609. Although the wine cup and teacup looked the same, when Chu Qingyan brought the cup to her lips, she unconsciously looked at the person beside her. She felt that people who did bad things would feel guilty, like she was doing it now. However, he found that Big Ice Cube was chatting with Yangqing, and was not paying attention to him. He was delighted and immediately drank the wine in one gulp. Cough cough, so spicy. Chu Qingyan choked on her food and swallowed it down with much difficulty. At this time, someone was patting her back. It was a familiar rhythm and strength. She knew it was the Big Ice Cube just by thinking. She was already used to the interaction between the two, so Chu Qingyan did not feel anything. But Xiao Su's action in everyone's eyes, especially in Yangqing's eyes, immediately became, "His Highness is very considerate of his subordinates. He really is a good master." If Hualing and the others knew what these people were thinking, they would probably spit out 3 liters of blood. His Highness is only good to the little princess consort like this. If he was like this to them, they would probably have a few broken ribs. This was the difference between close and distant. Chu Qingyan enjoyed Big Ice Cube's comfort with a clear conscience. Xiao Su, on the other hand, continued his conversation with Yangqing without even turning his head after Chu Qingyan calmed down. Although the first mouthful of wine was very spicy, she felt her entire body warm up and her body float. Drinking wine was so comfortable. The Big Ice Cube was so stingy, not letting her touch it normally. The interaction between her little sister and Chu Qingyan had already entered Yang Yuhuan's eyes. She turned her eyes. Chu Qingyan was His Royal Highness' confidant. If she became a Ci Fei in the future, she would have to build a good relationship. So she turned to say a few words to the maidservant beside her, and that maidservant left. When she came back, she was holding a teapot. The maidservant walked to Chu Qingyan's side and respectfully said, "Young Master Chu, this is the special tea my family's eldest miss prepared for you. You can try it." Chu Qingyan looked suspiciously in Yang Yuhuan's direction. She saw that she was smiling very kindly, which was very different from her previous arrogant image. She looked thoughtfully at the teapot, and then took it. Just like that, he gently shook the teapot, and a fragrant aroma wafted out. Chu Qingyan blinked. It was wine. Chu Qingyan couldn't help looking at Yang Yuhuan again. She saw that her smile was even more kindly. Chu Qingyan understood. She wanted to bribe her. Was she planning on making a move against the Big Ice Cube again? It had to be said, sometimes a woman's intuition. Chu Qingyan's lips slightly curled and revealed a mocking smile. Such a shallow woman. Was she, Chu Qingyan, so easy to bribe? However, this wine couldn't be wasted. Chu Qingyan poured a cup of wine for herself. Smelling it, it was quite fragrant, so she drank the cup. Chu Qingyan had never drunk ancient wine, so she didn't know that this wine had to be savored slowly and couldn't be drunk too quickly. Otherwise, the accumulated aftertaste would be even stronger. It was a pity that Xiao Su, who occasionally turned his head, saw her drinking tea with a normal expression, and didn't realize that she had already drunk half a pot of wine. Yangqing put forward many suggestions regarding the governance of Fu City, which were all accepted by His Highness. He was very happy. At the table, Chu Qingyan drank her first wine in ancient times. She was very happy. So the entire banquet was full of joy. Xiao Su left the hall with Chu Qingyan. When he was about to walk towards his courtyard, he suddenly heard a call from behind. His Royal Highness. Xiao Su frowned. When his footsteps stopped, the person who called him had already walked in front of him. With the help of the moonlight, he saw the person who stopped him. It was Yang Yuhuan. Yang Yuhuan was panting as she walked in front of him. His Highness's legs were really long, and he walked too fast. She almost couldn't catch up. She raised her head and saw His Royal Highness' cold gaze under the moonlight. She couldn't help but tremble, but she quickly gathered her courage. Your Highness, I didn't know your identity before and mistakenly heard the rumors. I said some inappropriate things in front of you. Please don't take it to heart. Xiao Su's mood tonight was pretty good because his fief had an official who had some ideas, so he drank a bit of wine. But when this troublemaker appeared in front of him, he was very impatient. If she wasn't Yang Qing's daughter, he would have already had people drag her away. So he subconsciously looked at the little fellow behind him. Usually, it was the little fellow who scared away the flowers and plants. He originally wanted her to take care of them, but he found her standing quietly behind him with her head lowered, as if she had nothing to do with it. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Was she throwing a tantrum because he didn't give her wine tonight? He rubbed his chin. It looked like he had to appease this angry little wild cat later. Yang Yuhuan didn't know that the person in front of her was distracted, and thought that he had silently forgiven her. Her heart was nervous and happy. In the end, she boldly said, Your Highness, I said before that father wanted to marry you. It's true. In the future, we will be a family. Yuhuan and the Princess Consort will serve you well. When Xiao Su came back to his senses, he only heard her last sentence. His face darkened. Who gave her the courage? Yang Yuhuan lowered her head and shyly finished speaking. When she carefully wanted to see his reaction, a gust of wind suddenly attacked her. Before she could react, she felt a pain in her shoulder, and then she was sent flying into a tree trunk. Everything happened too suddenly. She didn't care about the pain in her back, and only felt that someone was pressing down on her. She opened her eyes in a panic and saw a pair of seductive watery eyes blinking in front of her. They were innocent, but also evil and cunning. She had never seen a temperament that could combine seduction and innocence so seamlessly. But the person in front of her could easily control it. A delicate fragrance mixed with the smell of wine lingered around her like this, as if she was isolated from the outside world. She was so scared that she wanted to escape from this terrifying shroud, but the hand on her shoulder was as heavy as 1,000 pounds of gold. She didn't dare to act rashly. She saw the person holding her down slowly lean closer to her, until he was right next to her ear. A voice as beautiful as the singing of an enchantress sounded in her ear. Who allowed you to have designs on my big ice block over and over again? Big ice cube? Who was that? But Yang Yuhuan was already unable to speak at this time. Even if she could speak, it wouldn't be smooth. She could only look at the silver-masked youth in front of her in horror. Her fiery red lips slightly opened as she once again softly spoke. I'm warning you, don't have any thoughts that you shouldn't have because that is my person. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as scaring you. The innocent voice sounded like it was making a little joke. But Yang Yuhuan knew that it wasn't a joke. Her legs trembled as she could only desperately nod her head. Good girl. The silver-masked youth tilted his head and gently patted her shoulder. His smile was pure and innocent. But Yang Yuhuan looked at her in horror. She feared this person from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 6:10. Chu Qingyan let go of her hand and Yang Yuhuan collapsed to the ground. She tilted her head. She was just trying to scare her. Why was she so fragile? She clapped her hands and turned to walk towards the people behind her. Xiao Su only saw the little fellow pressing Yang Yuhuan against the tree trunk. He didn't know what she said, but he didn't care at all. The little fellow had a sense of propriety, and he was very relieved. However, if he knew what his little rascal had said to Yang Yuhuan, he probably wouldn't be so calm and collected. Let's go back. Chu Qingyan lowered her head in acknowledgement, and continued to follow behind him. Xiao Su frowned. Don't walk so slowly. Let's walk together. I want to see your back. Chu Qingyan said to him with a smile. Xiao Su was slightly stunned. The little fellow was a little strange, but her words pleased him, and he didn't say anything. Chu Qingyan walked behind him and looked at his back. She tilted her head and looked puzzled but happy. Why was her big ice cube so good-looking even from the back? She couldn't help but think of when she was in university. Because her roommate's back was too good-looking, her male classmates gave her the nickname of Backview Killer. AI, the big ice cube, was the male version of Backview Killer. Along the way, Xiao Su only felt that the people behind him were staring at him with a burning gaze. But when he turned around, he saw the little fellow's smiling face. Because it was too dark, he didn't notice that there was an unnatural blush on her snow-white skin. When he pushed open the door, the room was pitch black. Xiao Su frowned. Just as he was about to ask someone to light the candles, a pair of hands suddenly reached out from behind and wrapped around his waist. Then, a soft body pressed against his back, causing him to tremble. "Big Ice Cube, your body is so cold and comfortable." Then a soft voice exploded in his ears. Xiao Su didn't care about their current posture. He turned around and entered the room, then closed the door. As soon as the door was closed, the person behind him was pulled in front of him. "Qingyan, what's wrong with you?" The room was very dark. Even if the moonlight shone through the window, she could only see the outline of the person in front of her. Nothing." The person in front of him shook his head. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Su's body stiffened. This was because a pair of soft and boneless hands had wrapped around his waist. "You call this nothing?" He hadn't noticed anything unusual about her tonight, so why did she change the way she spoke and acted the moment she returned to the room? "Big Ice Cube, you're hurting me." Chu Qingyan twisted her hand and found that the other party's hands were clasped tightly. She raised her head and complained. Xiao Su loosened his grip when the person in front of him spoke again. "Big Ice Cube, lower your head. I have something to say to you," Chu Qingyan said seriously. Thinking that she had returned to normal, Xiao Su did not suspect anything and leaned down. Seeing that he was cooperating, Chu Qingyan smiled subtly. Then she immediately moved her head closer, brushing against his cheek as she whispered into his ear. At this moment, Xiao Su frowned. "Did you drink?" He smelled a strong scent of alcohol. Just now, he thought that he had smelled his own, but he didn't expect it to be hers. Before he could finish his sentence, he felt something wet and soft against his earlobe. Xiao Su immediately forgot to react. He also didn't remember that he was questioning her a second ago. Chu Qingyan seemed to be very satisfied with his cooperation and reaction. She left his earlobe, tilted her head, and dropped a feather-light droplet on his chin. Just as she was about to make her next move, Xiao Su had already recovered from his shock. He instantly straightened up, picked up the person in front of him, and placed her on a chair. Then he sat down 3 or 4 chairs away from her. "Didn't I tell you not to drink? Where did you get the alcohol?" He could already confirm that she had drunk tonight, and it looked like she had drunk quite a lot. He still remembered that Father Chu had casually told him that Kai couldn't drink. When she was young, she had mistakenly drunk a mouthful of alcohol from the uncle next door, and then went crazy. It was obvious that her alcohol tolerance was very low. So this was also why he had not allowed her to touch a drop of alcohol all these years. It was not only for her growth, but also because of Father Chu's words. But now, it seemed that it was not as simple as going crazy. If she had gone crazy, he could have stopped her. But now it was giving him a headache. Chu Qingyan stood up from the chair and slowly walked towards that person. "Xiao Huan secretly gave me a cup, and Yang Yuhuan wanted to get close to me, so she changed the tea to wine." Chu Qingyan smiled a little mischievously. When she said these words to attract his attention, she had already put one hand on his shoulder, then sat on his knee and leaned her whole body on his chest. The veins on Xiao Su's forehead bulged. Tonight, this little fellow was really... "Do you know what you're doing right now?" Xiao Su gritted his teeth at the person who was rubbing against his chest and sniffing here and there. "I know." The person raised her head and took off the obstructive mask on her face. Then, without warning, she reached out to him and took off the mask that had touched her face just now. "I'm taking advantage of you." She smiled, and the faint light shone on her face. Only her red lips were moving, and he couldn't bear to look away. Xiao Su held his forehead. You're drunk. I'm not drunk. It's the wine that makes me drunk. Big Ice Cube, you're the one who made me drunk. Chu Qingyan smiled like a flower, and her eyes flashed with seriousness, gentleness, sincerity, seductiveness, and a mess of emotions. All in all, it was summed up in one sentence. She was going to have him tonight. Xiao Su was speechless, and he didn't know how to answer her. Big Ice Cube, don't be so stingy. Just let me have a piece of tofu, okay? Her hands were held tightly in his palms again, and she couldn't help but start to negotiate with him. Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. Did she really think that tofu could be eaten in pieces? No. He said righteously. Then I'll be good and let me have it. She said in a roundabout way. Xiao Su's face darkened. No. Chu Qingyan was annoyed. She lowered her head and bit his neck. Xiao Su didn't guard against her, and was bitten quite badly. His hands subconsciously loosened, and the person who was close to him had a look of success in her eyes. She broke free from his grip and reached for him again. This time, it was his belt. Xiao Su wasn't so easily fooled this time. He grabbed her hands and put them behind her back. He resisted the restless heat in his body and said in a low and serious voice, "Don't move, or I'll tie you up." Xiao Su was just scaring her, but it seemed to have worked. Because the person leaning on him didn't move for a long time. Xiao Su relaxed his brows, and then he heard her even breathing. He was stunned, and then he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A certain someone, who had made him look so miserable, had fallen asleep without a care in the world. Chapter 6:11. The sunlight shone in through the window and fell on the person on the bed. The light of the spring sun was warm, but after being in the sun for a long time, it was a bit hot. Chu Qingyan was woken up by this warm sunlight. She opened one eye and the light was a bit blinding. She closed it again, opened the other eye, and closed it again. After repeating this cycle, she rubbed her heavy head and slowly got up. What was wrong with her? Why did she feel like her entire body was filled with lead and her head was aching? After seeing the room clearly, she was even more confused. How did she come back last night? She remembered that she drank wine last night, and then her entire body became dizzy and she lost consciousness in the end. After calming down, she lifted the blankets and got up. After tidying herself up, she left the room. "Master, you're awake." Jean Xian heard the sound of the door opening and slightly bowed in greeting. "What time is it now?" Chu Qingyan held her forehead and casually asked. "Noon." The hand holding her forehead paused. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. She really slept too deeply today. How did I come back last night? She continued to ask. Jean Xian honestly replied. His Highness sent you back. Last night, you were drunk and fell asleep in His Highness' room. Chu Qingyan's face was filled with shock. Why did she not have any recollection of it? She desperately tried to remember what happened at the banquet last night. She only remembered that the wine was really good and the more she drank, the more addictive she became. After that, she did not remember anything and slept until the sky was bright. Where is His Highness? She was thinking about this in her mind as she casually asked. He went out with official Yang this morning. Jean Xian replied. Why didn't anyone call me? Chu Qingyan frowned. Before His Highness left, he told us not to let anyone disturb you and to let you sleep until you wake up naturally. Jean Xian continued to answer. Oh, then I didn't do anything outrageous last night, did I? She asked tentatively. Jean Xian shook his head. Last night he wasn't by his master's side. Seeing that she hadn't returned in the middle of the night, he originally planned to look for her. But halfway there he saw His Highness sending her back. However, he found that His Highness's cold aura was stronger than usual, so he didn't dare to approach him. She didn't know how her master had offended him. Thinking of this, Jean Xian paused. Should he mention this to his master? Just as Jean Xian was hesitating, his master had already left the room. Jean Xian thought it was better not to say it. In any case, according to His Highness's daily behavior of spoiling his master, it might just be a small fight. Small skirmishes? Would Xiao Su think so? Chu Qingyan wandered out of her courtyard. Because she was bored in her room, She wanted to go out for a walk. Just as she stepped out of the courtyard, she saw Yang Yuhuan sitting under a tree drinking tea. It really was enemies on a narrow road. Thinking of the way she looked at the big ice cube at the dinner table, it really made people feel uncomfortable. But she thought that it was better not to talk to this little girl so early in the morning, so as to avoid attracting bad luck. Chu Qingyan wanted to turn around and leave, but she noticed Yang Yuhuan's movement. Yang Yuhuan was drinking there, but the corner of her eyes inadvertently saw a red figure. She stiffened her neck and looked up. When she saw the person clearly, the cup in her hand slipped and fell. She stood up in fright and stepped back. She couldn't stand steadily and fell to the ground. Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks in surprise as she looked at the terrified Yang Yuhuan. She couldn't help but rub her chin. Could it be that Yang Yuhuan had already mastered the skill of scaring people out of their wits with just one look? Yang Yuhuan didn't care about the pain. She wanted to call the servants to help her leave this demon, but she didn't think that a pair of exquisite boots would be standing in front of her. When she looked up, that silver-masked youth had already lowered his head and leaned over. She screamed and instantly crawled back a few steps. Chu Qingyan straightened up, feeling even more strange. It had only been one night, and this Yang Yuhuan had already encountered a ghost? Eldest young Miss Yang Yu. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and then softly said, "Have you been possessed?" Yang Yuhuan shook her head repeatedly. I. You. Chu Qingyan imitated her words. "What's wrong with you?" Yang Yuhuan saw that she didn't have the strange coquettish aura from last night, and retreated a lot in panic. With the help of the servant girls, she slowly stood up. But when she saw Chu Qingyan looking at her in confusion, she couldn't help but look in front of her in horror and said, "Young Master Chu, last night you..." "Last night? What happened last night?" Chu Qingyan was very puzzled. She only drank a pot of wine last night. What could happen? Yang Yuhuan looked at the person slowly approaching her and couldn't take it anymore. Then Chu Qingyan saw this delicate eldest young Miss Yang run away, as if she was being chased by an evil ghost, stumbling and falling as she ran out of the courtyard in a sorry state. That's strange. Why did this Yang Yuhuan look like she had seen a ghost? Chu Qingyan was very puzzled. At this moment, when she turned around with a stomach full of questions, she found Yang Xiaohuan standing behind her, looking hesitant and at a loss of what to do. "What's the matter?" Chu Qingyan recovered her gentle tone and asked. Yang Xiaohuan looked at the person in front of her who was seriously asking her, and suddenly didn't know where to place her hands. Chu Qingyan saw her stuttering, for a long time, but she wasn't anxious and calmly waited for her to speak. Some people just needed her to get rid of her psychological barriers, so that her future path would be smooth. If she kept hesitating, then there would never be any progress. Yang Xiaohuan seemed to have felt the encouragement of the person in front of her, and finally mustered up her courage to speak. "Big brother Chu, can I go with you?" When these words came out, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Yang Xiaohuan, who had been observing her expression, saw her reaction, and her face turned gloomy. She knew that the matter she raised would be unimaginable, and even she herself felt that it was inconceivable. If she wanted the other party to agree, that would be even more impossible. Chu Qingyan also saw Yang Xiaohuan's disappointed expression, and she couldn't help but restrain her expression. She didn't forget that she was dressed as a man at this moment. The other party's words couldn't help but cause people to have wild and fanciful thoughts. A young lady telling a man that she wanted to go with him. This was obviously eloping. Could it be that some of her usual caring words and actions had been misunderstood by her? After all, a young lady at this age was already experiencing the first awakening of love. Yang Xiaohuan had always been a timid and shy little sister in her eyes. Suddenly doing this to her, wasn't this making her? But if that was the case, then wouldn't she have cheated an innocent and naive young lady? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but shiver. Oh my God. It would still be alright if she cheated a young man, but why did it have to be this little Lolita in front of her? She could already imagine how ugly that Ice Cube's already icy cold face would become. Chapter 6:12. Why? Chu Qingyan takes a deep breath. Although it's inconceivable and shocking, she has to ask clearly. This is related to a younger sister's lifelong happiness. She originally thought that she wouldn't get a reply from Big Brother Chu, and that she would be looked down upon. She was already so sad that she wanted to give up. But at her good-natured question, the little flame in his heart was humbly kindled again. Because, young Xiaohuan raises her head, her eyes watery. Big Brother Chu is the only person who treats Xiaohuan well other than mother. I don't want to stay here anymore. I want to follow you. Even if I have to be a maid, I'm also willing. Be a maid? Chu Qingyan purses her lips. You don't want to be the young miss of a dignified prefectural magistrate, and follow a nobody like me as a maid. Don't you think this idea is too impulsive? Young Xiaohuan shakes her head. I've never enjoyed the treatment a young miss should have here, and I also feel that I'm not worthy. After all, I'm a concubine's daughter, and a concubine's daughter is only a little better than a third-ranked maid. But her status in the Yang household is probably even lower than a low-ranked maid. You think that by following me, you can enjoy glory, splendor, wealth and rank? She can't be blamed for saying this. She has to let this little girl see the truth. Young Xiaohuan hurriedly shakes her head. It's not like that, Big Brother Chu. Xiaohuan has never thought of climbing up to you. It's. In the end, she doesn't know how to explain herself anymore. She's so anxious that tears are welling up in her eyes. Then what is it? Just because I treat you well? Xiaohuan, look clearly, I'm a man now. If you say such things to a man, it's easy for people to misunderstand. Moreover, I'm only a follower of His Highness. It's very difficult to take you away from your father. Chu Qingyan forces herself to say these words because it's the truth. I don't want to be restrained in one place. I also have dignity. I don't want to be humiliated, but I can't be strong now. I don't have power. Everyone can trample on me. I don't have a mother. My father only cares about his work and has never cared about me. For so many years, I have been walking alone. I long for someone to reach out and give me a hand. Chu Qingyan didn't expect her to say these words. Looking at her, she seems to recall herself in the capital. That weak girl who always wanted to be strong. It's a lie to say that she's not moved. In the end, young Xiaohuan bravely raises her head, and that person has finally come. It's you. I know it's you. You. Chu Qingyan doesn't know what to say. Young Xiaohuan wipes her tears and smiles. Her smile is sad and relieved. Before mother left, she said that there are many things in this world that don't fall in front of you for no reason. So you have to rely on your own two hands to fight for them. Today, Xiaohuan stands in front of Big Brother Chu and says these words. Xiaohuan has already fought for it. No matter where I am in the future, I won't regret what I did today. After saying that, young Xiaohuan nods at her and prepares to leave. Her words and actions were too out of line. She's afraid that she scared Big Brother Chu, but she doesn't regret it. Have you finished reading those books? A clear and gentle voice rang out behind her, successfully stopping her in her tracks. She turns her head, puzzled, astonished, and expectant. She looks at the youth in front of her. She woodenly nods her head. I finished reading. Tomorrow I'll check on you. If you pass, I'll take you away. Taking you away from your father's hands may be difficult for others, but for me, it's not difficult. The silver-masked youth says it very softly, but when it falls into her ears, it's as heavy as 1,000 pounds of gold. Big drops of tears roll down her face, but she smiles incomparably joyfully. Okay. There's a voice in her heart telling her to take her away. Chu Qingyan wants to take a gamble. This is a girl who makes people's hearts pity her. In the end, is it worth it for her to block her way? In another place. Your Highness? Your Highness? Your Highness? After Yangqing finished talking about his prospects for Father City, he's full of satisfaction waiting for His Royal Highness's judgment. But after he spoke for a long time, the person beside him didn't respond. He can't help but try calling out a few times. His call didn't get any response. Yangqing thinks that maybe his suggestion is too good. His Highness is deep in thought, so he didn't hear his call. Then he should wait a little longer. So Yangqing is full of satisfaction as he stands in the wind and waits. On the way, he sneezes a few times. At this time, Xiao Su, who is patrolling Father City's defense with Yangqing, didn't think that he would be distracted on such an important occasion. This is a mistake that has never happened before. And once he's distracted, he's been distracted for an entire afternoon. He stands on the city wall, looking at the bustling streets. His thoughts have already drifted to last night. The little girl didn't listen to his warning. She secretly drank wine, and then started to act crazy. But her drunkenness is different from other people's unreasonable scolding. But he purses his lips. He never thought that the little girl would do such a thing to him. What's worse is that his body already has a reaction. His body has a reaction to the girl he cares for so much. This is such an embarrassing thing. She should be a treasure in his hands, but he has feelings for her. This realization made Xiao Su clench his fists involuntarily. Because right now, he damnably recalls the delicate fragrance on her body. His body instantly tenses up. He immediately closes his eyes and uses his internal energy to suppress the heat in his body. Finally, he exhales a mouthful of turbid air. When he opens his eyes again, his eyes have already recovered their clarity. Your Highness. Yangqing saw him take a deep breath and immediately called out again. Having his thoughts interrupted, Xiao Su is a little unhappy. But he hid his emotions very well. What did official Yang say just now? Say it again. Yangqing has a feeling of being poured a mouthful of cold wind. Did His Highness not hear a single word he said just now? It's like this official feels that Father City. Yangqing doesn't dare to disobey and immediately says it again. But after Yangqing says it again, a certain person's mind is wandering again. So the following conversation is, official Yang, say it again. It's like this official feels that Father City. This conversation is repeated all the way. Yangqing repeats until his mouth is dry, but Xiao Su continues to be distracted. To be precise, Xiao Su has been in a daze for the entire afternoon. She was caught up in the strange feeling of having wild thoughts about the child she had raised herself. This feeling is very strange and helpless. At the same time, it also made him understand something. Chapter 6:13. Your Highness, it's getting late. Do you want to go back for dinner? Yangqing had been talking for the whole afternoon, and his mouth was dry. Looking at the dusk, his stomach was about to sing the empty fort strategy. However, the master in front of him was still looking at something in the cold wind. As subordinates, they didn't understand the world of His Highness, but he had been gone for a day. He should at least let him go back for dinner. Hearing his subordinate's slightly aggrieved and hoarse voice, Xiao Su didn't feel guilty at all. Instead, he stood on the gate tower for a while. Seeing the towering figure in front of him not moving, Yangqing rubbed his stomach and secretly tightened his belt. He didn't know how long His Highness would stay, so he had to be prepared. Finally, after the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the great Buddha in front of him finally opened his mouth. What restaurants are there in Fu City? Yangqing was delighted. Drunken Complacent and Drunken Mimi. These two restaurants are not bad. One is famous for its drunken duck, while the other is famous for its sweet and sour ribs. Which one does Your Highness want to go to? So His Highness didn't want to go back to eat. It seemed that he was really too stupid. He couldn't even understand His Highness's thoughts. If he had suggested eating outside earlier, he wouldn't have to stay in the cold wind for so long. However, Yangqing, who was standing behind the great Buddha, didn't see the indescribable emotion that flashed across the great Buddha's face when he said the names of Drunken Complacent and Drunken Mimi. Change. The voice was a little tense. Yangqing was so frightened by this cold voice that his legs trembled. He didn't know how these two shops had offended the big Buddha. He immediately racked his brains to think of what other restaurants in Fu City were worth mentioning. Dream Immortal Restaurant. Approved. After Xiao Su casually responded, he took the lead and went down the city gate tower. Only then did Yangqing wipe the cold sweat on his forehead and quickly followed. Drunken Complacent and Drunken Mimi. These two names were quite good. Unfortunately, they both had the word drunk, which reminded the great Buddha of someone's drunken state last night. Therefore, it could be said that the word drunk was taboo in the great Buddha's ears. Chu Qingyan was in the Yang residence. She waited from day to night, but didn't see anyone. She couldn't help but call Hualing over. Hualing, why isn't His Highness back yet? It didn't seem to be his habit to stay out at night. This subordinate doesn't know. I heard that Master and Sir Yang are eating at a restaurant outside. Do you need this subordinate to investigate which restaurant Master is at? Hualing reported. At the end, he suddenly thought of something and asked with a smile. He clearly felt that his master's mood was a bit abnormal when he went out today. He didn't know if it had something to do with the little princess in front of him, so he wanted to give the little princess a push. The two of them didn't make any progress, and everyone was anxious. It was just like how the eunuch was more anxious than the emperor. All right. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and dismissed him. Chu Qingyan was still thinking about young Xiaohuan at this time, so she didn't notice the look on Hualing's face. If Big Ice Cube agreed, she would keep young Xiaohuan by her side. Tomorrow's test was just to make her feel at ease. Young Xiaohuan stayed by her side through her strength, which could also be considered as giving her an honorable identity. Chu Qingyan's side was calm and peaceful, but Yang Qing's side was filled with ice and fire. This was because His Highness in front of him wasn't eating or eating. He was just holding a wine cup in his hand. He didn't know what he was thinking about, but when he was deep in thought, the food would turn cold. He could still remember when he entered the private room. He couldn't figure out His Highness' preferences, so when he asked if he wanted to invite singers and dancers, he was frozen stiff by His Highness' cold eyes. So from the moment he sat down until now, he didn't dare to breathe out loud, trying his best to be invisible. If His Highness treated him as air, as a wall, as a chair, as anything, it was fine. Sir Yang. Xiao Su, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke. Yang Qing dropped his chopsticks with a pada sound, and then his body trembled in fear as he replied. Your Highness, what orders do you have? The Yang family's second miss is your daughter? Towards this completely unrelated question, Yang Qing was stunned at first before replying in a small voice, yes. Could his daughter not be his daughter? How could he be cuckolded? Then I'll fulfill my responsibility as a father. Xiao Su stood up, looked down at him, and turned to leave. If he fulfilled his responsibility as a father, then his little fellow wouldn't have to spend so much effort on young Xiaohuan. Only people who haven't experienced warmth would crave warmth. But in this world, only he could have the little fellow's warmth. Yang Qing sat there in a daze. He didn't know what His Highness meant. However, the look His Highness gave him just now froze him again. Xiao Su had just returned to the palace when Hualing came forward to greet him. Master. Xiao Su had just put down his cloak when he heard Hualing's hesitant voice. Speak. Xiao Su said concisely. Hualing raised his head to look at him before lowering his head again. Tonight, the young princess consort seemed to be in a bad mood. Right now, she's locked herself in her room. Xiao Su's fingers paused and he raised his eyebrows. Who did she come into contact with today? Yang family's eldest miss and second miss. Hualing replied truthfully. After Xiao Su responded, he turned and walked out the door. Hualing looked at his master's back and secretly made a yay sign. Don't ask him why he knew. He learned it from the young princess consort. Do you know that you're asking for trouble? Hualing had just walked out the door when he heard Turin's words. Hualing snorted. Am I the only one who's anxious? Aren't you all anxious? Don't hide it from me. What happened between Master and the young princess consort in the room last night? Why is Master's actions so abnormal today? Turin coughed softly when he heard this. I wasn't too close last night, so I'm not too clear. He didn't clearly see the young princess consort suddenly hug Master, and didn't clearly see Master's expression change. Hualing looked at him suspiciously, and didn't ask anything in the end. In the quiet courtyard at night, Xiao Su walked slowly and calmly, but when he reached the closed door, his raised hand suddenly paused in midair. At this time, an indescribable emotion surged in his heart. He didn't know what kind of attitude he should have when facing the person inside. Last night, her affectionate attachment, her unrelenting lips, and the heat that couldn't be ignored reappeared in front of his eyes. He knew that it was because she was drunk. When she was drunk, no matter what she did, it had nothing to do with her real self because those actions were all unconscious. If it was a normal day, the little fellow wouldn't do such a thing and definitely wouldn't do such a thing. But he couldn't lie to himself. At that moment, he had evil thoughts about her. Xiao Su slowly withdrew his hand. At this moment, When his mind was in a mess, he couldn't see her. Chapter 6:14. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, there was a soft sound from the door. His back suddenly stiffened. He had been so distracted that he didn't even hear the footsteps behind the door. Then the door was opened from the inside. Then a beautiful face was revealed. She wrinkled her nose and crossed her arms as she looked at him with disdain. "You're finally willing to come back?" "What?" Towards her inexplicable mood, Xiao came back to his senses and looked at her with some confusion. The little fellow seemed to be like what Hualing said, a little unhappy. A gentle village. Chu Qingyan opened the door and walked in, leaving him alone outside. Dream immortal house, hee. How could it be a place to eat? Sure enough, whether it was the business world or the government, it couldn't be separated from that kind of place. When she thought of the big ice cube hugging a girl in his left hand and another in his right hand, she felt uncomfortable all over. Xiao understood. He walked in with large strides and his lips hooked into a smile. "I didn't touch those people." As soon as his voice fell, Xiao thought for a bit and added, "You know that I'm obsessed with cleanliness." Chu Qingyan turned around to look at him. She knew that the big ice cube disdained to lie, so the gloominess in her heart disappeared just like that. He really came quickly and left quickly. "Then what did you go there for?" She was no longer angry and a faint smile appeared on her face. She turned around and asked curiously. She had been by his side for so long, but she had never seen him go to those places. When she heard Hualing's report today, she was really too surprised. "If I said that I went to eat, would you believe me?" Xiao sat down in front of her. His tone was as relaxed as usual. Then he looked at the tea and Chu Qingyan automatically poured him a cup of tea. Eating in that kind of place, only Yang Qing could think of that. Chu Qingyan thought of how Yang Qing looked like an honest person, but was secretly such a cunning person. It seemed like she really couldn't keep Xiao Huan in the Yang manner. Xiao sipped his tea without saying a word. As for Yang Qing, who had been drinking tea at home, he had become the scapegoat for some inexplicable reason, and had also become the target of Chu Qingyan's hatred. "By the way, Big Ice Cube, do you still remember the youngest daughter of the Yang family?" Chu Qingyan remembered something important. "Yeah." Xiao had a premonition that something was wrong. Chu Qingyan secretly rubbed her hands. She knew that Big Ice Cube didn't like Xiao Huan, but she still wanted to discuss it with him. "Big Ice Cube, I want to leave with Xiao Huan." Xiao tightened his grip on the teacup, but his tone remained calm. "Why?" Chu Qingyan saw that he didn't get angry or show any displeasure, so she said boldly, "Xiao Huan isn't doing well in the Yang residence. If she doesn't like to stay in the Yang residence, I can arrange another place for her to stay and ensure her safety." She had just dared to open her mouth when he cut her off. Chu Qingyan shook her head and continued. "Xiao Huan is all alone and has no friends. Her family doesn't seem like family, so she said she wants to stay with me. I can arrange it for her. She can get to know more people and integrate into different circles." She had just finished speaking when she was cut off again. "It's not the same. There's nothing different about it." She had been cut off again and again. She had asked sincerely, but he had casually rejected her. Chu Qingyan felt that her good character was about to be worn away by him. "But I just want to take her away." Chu Qingyan snorted. "Very good." She dared to throw a tantrum just because of an outsider. "Since you've already made your decision, why do you still need to discuss it with me?" Xiao put down the teacup in his hand heavily and stood up. Chu Qingyan rarely saw him be so cold to her. She was stunned at first, and then she looked at the tea that spilled out of the cup and suddenly stood up. Xiao looked at the person in front of him who had opened her arms to stop him, and his lips slightly pursed. "Big Ice Cube, are you angry at me?" Big Ice Cube rarely got angry, and she wasn't sure if he was angry right now. "What do you think?" Xiao suddenly felt a headache. He had already made it so obvious, but this little fellow couldn't tell. It was like all his anger had hit cotton. At this time, a claw was placed on his sleeve and gently pulled. Xiao lowered his head and waited for her to speak without saying a word. "Big Ice Cube, I'll apologize first and then you can tell me why you're angry, alright?" She gave in. She didn't know why the big ice cube had a kind of dislike or hostility towards Xiao the entire way. Where did the problem come from? The big ice cube wasn't a petty person. Where did he go wrong? The person in front of him raised her little face and looked at him with her crystal-clear eyes. At this time, she was looking at him with doubt, worry and innocence. But she didn't have a trace of resentment towards his inexplicable actions. Xiao Su's eyes moved, and then he reached out to hug the young girl in front of him. This was the first time in so many years that he took the initiative. Chu Qingyan was already stunned by him. Then the heat that came from her cheeks was so real. Xiao Su's chin rested on her head and his eyes darkened. Ask him why he was angry. Why? He also asked himself the same question. Did he not want the warmth that belonged to him to be taken away? When he saw the little fellow in young Xiaohuan for the first time, he had a strong premonition that this young Xiaohuan would share his warmth. As expected, it really was. In the past 20 years before he met the little fellow, he was standing in the darkness all the time. It was her appearance that pulled him out of the darkness and brought him to the light. She was his only light. She was the warmth that he couldn't let go of in his hands. He had nothing to lose because those things didn't belong to him. But only the warmth in his arms was his. If one day he saw her releasing her warmth to others, then he would no longer be her one and only. He had always been used to doing as he pleased and had never been obsessed with anything. Whether it was the position of the first prince of the Sichuan, the glory of the god of war, or the position that his mother and those people wanted him to stand in, he had never cared about it in his heart. This time, he realized that he also had something that he wanted to monopolize. But the little fellow in front of him was still young. She didn't seem to understand. Little fellow in your heart, am I one and only? No one would have thought that the blood-soaked god of war, the most honorable prince of Xixian, who was known as the cold and ruthless god of war, who looked high and mighty, would one day be pious, serious, worried, expectant, and panic-stricken, lowering his posture and asking such a humble question. What he wanted, warmth? Warmth, it didn't seem to be enough. It seemed that he wanted more. One and only, little fellow. I gave you my one and only, then what about you? Chapter 6:15. Little girl, am I unique in your heart? This sentence was very soft, so soft that it was only enough to blow a few strands of hair in her ear. However, when it landed in her heart, it was very, very heavy. She seemed to feel the unusual aura of the big ice cube. The arm around her shoulder tightened inch by inch. Unique? She had never thought about this question. But even if she asked it now, did she still need to think about the answer? She buried her head in his arms and nodded solemnly. She didn't know why the big ice cube suddenly asked this question, which caught her off guard, but she had never resisted anything from the big ice cube. This person who had been in her life 5 years ago, who had protected, tolerated, loved, respected, and pitied her, was her only tie in this world apart from her parents. Even if he was powerful and omnipotent in her eyes, he was the closest person who was willing to give her peace and happiness. Yes, unique. After nodding, she felt that it wasn't enough, so she said solemnly. As soon as she finished speaking, she felt the person holding her tightly in his arms again. There are no two similar leaves in the world. They are all unique, and you are also unique to me. Chu Qingyan opened her mouth, wanting to ask why the big ice cube suddenly asked her this emotional question. But then she slowly closed her mouth. At this moment, the big ice cube gave her a helpless feeling, like a clingy child. As soon as this thought came to her mind, it was immediately sent flying by Chu Qingyan. How could her big ice cube be like a child? She wondered if something had happened in the capital city, which made the big ice cube so depressed. The parents who were only responsible for giving birth and not raising were really the most irresponsible parents in the world. For so many years, the news from the capital city would always come. She saw that every time he received the news, he would sit in the study for a whole day or a whole night. Although the big ice cube showed that he didn't care about them, the strongest thing in the world was the blood relationship. How could he not care just because he didn't say it? In this way, the two of them hugged in silence. Time seemed to have stopped. At this moment, they were incomparably relieved. If you want to take her away, then take her. In the end, he released her and his expression returned to its usual coldness. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that there was a faint smile at the corner of his eyes. Have you changed your mind? Chu Qingyan was surprised by his change of heart. She couldn't help but tilt her head and ask him with a smile. Isn't it good? He asked with interest. Chu Qingyan choked. How did the obedient big ice cube just disappear? Could it be that she was imagining things? Tell me why you want to take her away. Xiao Su returned to his seat and poured himself another cup of tea before looking up at her. Because he was too emotional, he suddenly forgot that the little fellow in front of him was not someone who could not distinguish right from wrong. So perhaps she had her own plans behind this matter. Chu Qingyan sat down in front of him. Seeing that he had asked the question, she pursed her lips and smiled. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. I feel that young Xiaohuan is quite capable. From what I know, this girl has read a lot of books since she was young and has a great interest in agriculture and business. Am I not going to Jiangnan to try to do business? I want to train her to be my right-hand man. You don't worry about her character? Xiao Su looked at her indifferently. Her nature is naturally formed and her character is cultivated. I believe that she can change. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and showed a touch of confidence. Seeing the look in her eyes, Xiao Su's lips curled up slightly. Jinling is in Jiangnan. If you feel that she is suitable, you can send her there for a period of training. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. Big Ice Cube, you agreed. She originally had this plan, but seeing that the Big Ice Cube did not seem to like Xiaohuan very much, she did not say anything. She did not expect that he would take the initiative to mention it. Xiao Su looked at the beaming face in front of him, and reached out to pat her head without saying anything. Chu Qingyan suddenly threw herself into his arms and rubbed against his arm. She giggled and said, Big Ice Cube is still the best. As soon as her voice fell, she was completely unaware of the indescribable expression that flashed across the face above her head. This scene made him involuntarily recall last night. Qingyan, there is one thing that you must do. He lightly exhaled and pulled her away from him. Yes. Your Highness, please instruct me. She stood upright with a solemn expression, but her eyes were mischievous. In the future, you are not allowed to touch a drop of wine. Xiao Su's words were loud and clear, but Chu Qingyan's face fell immediately. I think the wine is quite delicious. She immediately blushed and tried to negotiate. There is no room for negotiation. Otherwise, every time you commit a crime, you will be confined for a day. His tone was strict and did not allow for any discussion. Chu Qingyan knew that this matter had already come to an end. It's getting late, sleep early. Leaving this sentence, Xiao Su got up and walked out of the door. Chu Qingyan looked at his straight back, but her face was full of anger. Tyrannical, dictatorial, treacherous, only knows how to threaten, bad person monopolize power. He had not walked far when he heard the complaints behind him. Xiao Su smiled. What happened last night could not happen again. He was afraid that one day, he would not be able to control himself. Later, this kind of apprehension became a benefit for him. A long time later, when Chu Qingyan found out that she liked to tease people after drinking, and it was her own Big Ice Cube, she was determined to quit drinking. If someone gave her wine, she would get angry. But a certain big bad wolf seemed to have tasted the sweetness, and could not stop. Ah Qing, this pastry is not bad, do you want to try it? The big bad wolf held a plate of pastries in front of her. Chu Qingyan did not suspect him, took a piece and put it into her mouth, and asked with a lisp, What is this called? The taste is quite special. Wine fermented rose cream. The big bad wolf's eyes flashed with a trace of light. Oh! Chu Qingyan's eyes widened in hindsight, but soon, it was replaced by a shining gaze. Tonight, even if you shout until your throat is hoarse, no one will come to save you. Chu Qingyan, who had turned into a perverted fox, pushed him onto the bed. The big bad wolf looked at the woman who was straddling him, looking at him with a sly smile. It's my honor. Soon, the fragrance of wine in the room was covered by another charming and gentle atmosphere. Panting and suppressed chanting shattered in the last bit of candlelight. But the next day, when Chu Qingyan woke up and saw the ambiguous red marks on her body, she almost growled. She fell into his trap again. Last night, did she go overboard? Woo woo. Just when she was feeling ashamed and angry, a hand suddenly stretched out from the quilt and pulled her into an embrace, and a lazy and seductive voice in the morning sounded in her ears. You have good energy, do you want to continue? The question was just a notification. Chu Qingyan did not have time to cry out in alarm, and was once again eaten by the big bad wolf. Chapter 6:16. The next day, Yang Xiaohuan successfully passed Chu Qingyan's test. Chu Qingyan originally just wanted to test her casually, but she didn't expect this girl to give her such a big surprise. She unknowingly asked for 2 hours. Later, when the two were drinking tea, Yang Xiaohuan took the initiative to mention, "My mother was born in a business family, so when I was young, I followed her around and was influenced by her, so I know a little." Chu Qingyan nodded with satisfaction. It seemed that she made the right choice. This little girl was indeed suitable for business. I really found a treasure. When Yang Xiaohuan heard her say that, her cheeks instantly turned red, and she lowered her head shyly. These expressions didn't escape Chu Qingyan's eyes. She remembered Big Ice Cube's reminder, and suddenly felt that she shouldn't give this little girl too much misconception. Otherwise it would be difficult to clean up the mess. "Xiaohuan, I have a secret to tell you, but you can't tell anyone. Also, you have to be mentally prepared and promise not to be scared." Chu Qingyan put away the expression on her face and said seriously. Yang Xiaohuan heard her serious tone, and immediately sat up straight with a serious look. "Xiaohuan, I'm not a young man." When her voice fell, Chu Qingyan glanced at her, and found that she didn't seem to understand her words. So Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and took off the silver mask on her face. When Yang Xiaohuan saw the person in front of her suddenly take off the mask and reveal the hidden face, she was instantly stunned. She had never seen such a handsome man who was like a fairy. Wait! She saw the person in front of her continue to move her fingers and untie the white hairband on her head. Just like that, her black hair fell down and covered her entire shoulder. Seeing that Yang Xiaohuan was so stunned that she couldn't react, Chu Qingyan didn't stop what she was doing. She continued to wipe the slightly modified things on her face, revealing her real face. Yang Xiaohuan's eyes widened. This girl who was more beautiful than a fairy, was Big Brother Chu? Chu Qingyan saw that she was still in a daze and frowned slightly. She raised a finger and waved it in front of her face. "Are you dumbfounded?" Yang Xiaohuan was shocked when she came back to her senses. Her eyes were still filled with disbelief. Chu Qingyan sighed. She knew that things would turn out this way. "Xiaohuan, if you don't want to go with me now, it's not too late." When Yang Xiaohuan heard what she said, she immediately shook her head. "Big Brother Chu, oh no, big sister, I won't regret my decision to go with you." Yang Xiaohuan shook her head and said hurriedly. Chu Qingyan saw her expression and felt relieved, but he still couldn't help but want to tease her. "From a teenager to a young girl, do you feel regret?" Yang Xiaohuan continued to shake her head. "No, regardless of whether you are a man or a woman, in Xiaohuan's heart, you are the person who treats Xiaohuan the best. You are Xiaohuan's benefactor." Speaking till here, Yang Xiaohuan seemed to have understood something as she looked at her shyly. "Elder sister, have you misunderstood something?" "Xiaohuan don't." In the end, she couldn't continue, but she believed that her sister would understand what she wanted to express. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. She felt that she was thinking too much. "Let me formally introduce myself. I am Chu Qingyan. To the outside world, my identity is Chu Yan, His Royal Highness's strategist." Chu Qingyan curved her lips into a smile. Since she had already decided to take her in as her subordinate, then there was nothing to hide. Don't use people you don't suspect. Chu Qingyan. This truth shocked her more than Big Brother Chu being a woman. Looking at Yang Xiaohuan's mouth that was big enough to swallow an egg, Chu Qingyan didn't understand. She wanted to ask, but the person in front of her suddenly pounced over. She was shocked and could only catch the other person. You are His Royal Highness's little princess consort? You were betrothed to the King of England when you were 10 years old. And now you are his only true love?" Yang Xiaohuan's face was full of surprise. Only true love? Which eye did she use to see that? Xiaohuan, I admire you so much. Young Xiaohuan's face was full of worship. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. What was there to admire? Could it be that she admired her for enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens, and taking in this great devil, who was rumored to be wicked beyond redemption? But my family's big ice cube is clearly warm, kind and beautiful, okay? Speak human language. Chu Qingyan coughed softly, correcting the way she spoke. Hearing this, young Xiaohuan immediately straightened her clothes and stood upright, but there was still an incredulous light in her eyes. Big Sister Chu, did you know? My mother said that Xixian Kingdom can be said to be filled with young talents. If His Highness Prince Ying said he was second, no one would dare to say he was first. But His Royal Highness's cold temperament is as famous as his reputation. Everyone is laughing at that marriage decree, but no one would have thought that you stayed by his side for so many years at such a young age. It's simply too admirable. Many people say that the woman His Royal Highness loves the most is you. Chu Qingyan patted the head of the person in front of her, and shook her head with a sigh. Little girl, don't listen to hearsay. It's more important to be realistic. His Highness and I are not the kind of people you think we are. Is that so? Young Xiaohuan was a little confused. Because you are not a man, but a woman. Then when I recall His Highness' actions towards you along the way, he was very gentle, much gentler than other people. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Is that so? It's obvious. He doesn't talk to others, even to his subordinates he only says a few words. But to you he is not stingy with his words. He even looks at you. That kind of feeling is simply indescribable. Young Xiaohuan had not yet experienced her first awakening of love, and did not know how to describe that kind of infatuated gaze. At this moment, she was racking her brain to think. Chu Qingyan had already regained her senses. She smiled faintly and said mischievously, "After all, I treat him differently from other people, because I am his one and only." She did not know whether to treat her as his one and only sister, or as his one and only child. In any case, she was one and only. She had already obtained satisfaction for this. Young Xiaohuan rubbed her head. Didn't one and only mean one's existence and only one's love? But even a silly child like young Xiaohuan understood this principle. Those two fools were still separated by a layer of window paper that could not be poked through. When she left the Yang residence the next day, Chu Qingyan did not forget Yang Qing's incredulous expression when he found out that she was taking away his concubine's daughter. It was simply horrifying. "Young Master Chu, have you taken a fancy to my Xiaohuan?" Yes, I have taken a fancy to her talent." Chu Qingyan smiled faintly at him. Yang Qing's face was like the sky had fallen and the earth had cracked. From now on, young Xiaohuan is a member of the King of England's residence. Xiao Su made the final decision. They were on their way. Young Xiaohuan hugged her bundle, and did not look back. Her father's shock, her sister's anger. Her life would not be the same from today onwards. Because elder sister Chu had promised her to bring her to Jiangnan to open up the business world. The past, the loneliness, the hurt, the loneliness, the pain, they were all far away. What she wanted was the future of being by elder sister Chu's side. "Jiangnan, we are coming." Chapter 6:17. Jiangnan was good, and the scenery was familiar. When the sun rose, the flowers on the river were red, and when spring came, the river water was as green as blue. How could it not be Jiangnan? After staying in Lianqing for so long, Chu Qingyan had almost forgotten what it felt like to be on the shores of Jiangnan with the spring breeze. As the river grew narrower, the willow trees on both sides of the river became clearer and clearer. As the misty rain fell on her shoulders, Chu Qingyan stood at the bow of the boat, facing the wind. Suddenly, she felt as if she was floating in the air. Big Ice Cube, Jiangnan is a good place to live. Comfortable, peaceful, lively, and full of life. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the person beside him, and his gaze softened along with the bright smile on her face. You're on the boat looking at the scenery, and the person looking at the scenery is looking at you. The scenery decorates your window, and you decorate other people's eyes. Chu Qingyan turned to point at the boat in front of them and wanted to ask him, but when she met his gentle gaze, she subconsciously froze, and her heart felt itchy. When Xiao Su saw her look back, He withdrew the emotions in his eyes. Hiking in March and river swimming in April. Those boats are rented by the people to travel with their families. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the simple boat not far away, and he explained to her. Chu Qingyan bit her lip. Her thoughts had already drifted away from his gentle gaze, and she didn't even pay attention to what he said. At this moment, something suddenly hit Chu Qingyan's clothes. She came back to her senses and looked down to find a peach blossom. She bent down to pick it up and placed it in her palm. The pink petals were still wet, and it looked very cute. It should have been picked not long ago. She held the flower and looked in the direction it came from. She saw that there were several small boats around her boat, and there were 2 or 3 girls standing on the boat that threw the flower. They had pink faces and were looking at her shyly. Chu Qingyan was a little confused, and at this time, several flowers were thrown from other ships. She was in a hurry to catch them, and when she was holding a large bouquet of flowers, she heard a charming laughter. Huoling, Turin, and the others came out of the ship and found that their little princess was about to be drowned by the sea of flowers. They were also surprised. When Yang Xiaohuan saw this, she couldn't help but snicker and whisper. This is a way for women in Jiangnan to express their admiration. When they see an outstanding man or a man they like, they will throw their flowers at him to express their feelings. From this, it seems that our master is too popular. Because she knew that her mistress was a girl, Yang Xiaohuan's tone was filled with schadenfreude when she said this. Chu Qingyan's expression was a bit awkward when she heard this. If she knew, she wouldn't have taken off her mask. Maybe she wouldn't have been so eye-catching. When Xiao Su heard Yang Xiaohuan's explanation, he looked at the peach blossoms, peonies, Chinese roses, and tulips in the little fellow's arms. His face suddenly darkened. At this time, there were also flowers thrown at Xiao Su. Xiao Su moved slightly to the side and dodged them. Then he walked back to the cabin with large strides. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw the peach blossom that was being stepped on by the big ice cube. She couldn't help but feel pity for the girl that threw the flower. Her big ice cube was so unromantic. However, if the big ice cube wasn't wearing a veil hat and had an unapproachable aura, it would have caused a traffic jam just to catch a glimpse of a beautiful man. Chu Qingyan smiled at the ships in front of her, and then turned to return to her cabin. Although she was not conceited about her beauty, it would be quite deceiving if she were to wear men's clothes. She had better not go and spoil the flowers and plants. Xiao Su lowered his head and drank his tea. Suddenly, a peach blossom appeared in front of him. He raised his eyebrows and the person behind him rushed in front of him. Present Buddha with borrowed flowers. He already knew when she approached him, but he didn't expose her. Xiao Su didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he poured a cup of tea and pushed it in front of her. We've arrived in Jiangnan. What are your plans? She had already known that he was unromantic. She withdrew her hand and sat down in front of him. She fiddled with the flower while pondering. The big ice cube was asking her what plans she had for her business. I want to find a business partner. It's best if he has a wide network of contacts or sales channels. This was what she had told Yin Luo before. Xiao Su pondered for a moment. Jin Ling is in charge of the bank and my remaining businesses. He might be able to help. No. I don't think I should get involved with you. You're doing things in secret. Don't be exposed because of my business. The people in the capital city aren't easy to deal with. If they find out, you'll be implicated. Chu Qingyan knew her own limits. What she was going to do would definitely come into contact with the upper-class nobles. If Jin Ling and the others were to interfere and were found out, the big ice cube would be implicated as well. Xiao Su smiled slightly. I didn't ask Jin Ling to get involved. I asked him to help you ask if there's anyone suitable. So she had misunderstood him. Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue. Her skin was as fair as snow, coupled with the delicate flower in her hand. She was simply more beautiful than the flowers. Xiao Su averted his gaze and lowered his head to drink his tea. To be honest, I'm very curious about Jin Ling. When will you bring me to meet him? Chu Qingyan rubbed her hands. She had already met the wood spirit, water spirit, fire spirit, and ethereal spirit. Only Jin Ling and water spirit had yet to meet. Water spirit was in the capital city. She would probably have to wait until later to meet him. However, Jin Ling was in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan immediately asked. The man's tone was filled with eagerness. Xiao Su frowned. Wasn't he just a Jin Ling? What was there to meet? Didn't he have 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth? Xiao Su was completely unaware that his heart was filled with jealousy. Let's not go to the bank yet. Come with me to meet someone first, Xiao Su said unhurriedly. Who is it? Chu Qingyan blinked. It was rare for Big Ice Cube to meet someone. This made Chu Qingyan extremely curious about the person's identity. Big Ice Cube was usually alone. If she had not met Yi Lingfeng, she would have thought that Big Ice Cube was destined to be alone. Xiao Su smiled but did not say anything. Still keeping it a secret? Wait. Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of someone. Her eyes widened. Is it the other good friend you mentioned before other than Yi Lingfeng? I remember you said that he was in Jiangnan. Xiao Su nodded, expressing his appreciation for her memory. Lin Fengyi, the current magistrate of Jiangnan, he explained. Wow, he's actually an official. And this official is so high-ranking. Chu Qingyan could not help but exclaim. A magistrate was equivalent to a provincial governor in modern times. Not bad. Xiao Su smiled. Chu Qingyan recovered from her surprise and began to mutter. A magistrate's position is so high. To be promoted to such a position, it would probably take a long time. Then wouldn't he be very old? Xiao Su smiled. You'll know when you see him. Chu Qingyan snorted softly, still keeping it a secret. Chapter 6:18. When the group got off the boat, someone came to pick them up. At this time, Chu Qingyan had already put on a veil to prevent a hole from being smashed on the road. But on the streets of Jiangnan, there were quite a few young men and women wearing veils, bamboo hats, or even veils. However, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su had outstanding temperaments, so they still received quite a bit of attention. This was the first time she came to Jiangnan, so Chu Qingyan was filled with curiosity towards everything. When several Jiangnan girls walked past them, Chu Qingyan couldn't help saying to the big ice block beside her. Everyone says that Jiangnan is a land of heroes. It really isn't wrong. Why do you say that? Xiao Su was a bit curious that she would say this when she just stepped into Jiangnan. Jiangnan is filled with beauties, handsome men, beautiful scenery, and delicious food. When her voice fell, Chu Qingyan became interested. She raised her hand to point forward and continued. Look, the young master standing at the painting stall in front, the young master picking out the brush over there, and the young master walking over there. They are all handsome. There are so many young men and women on the street, and they all have such good looks. It really is a feast for the eyes. When Chu Qingyan opened her mouth, Jin Xian, Hualing, and the others felt the cold aura around their master become even colder. Walk properly and don't look around. When Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she heard the person beside her reprimand her in a lukewarm manner. She choked. He was fine just now, so why did he suddenly become cold? The big ice block's thoughts were truly hard to guess. However, when her eyes were filled with beauties, handsome men, and beautiful scenery, Chu Qingyan's thoughts were hooked. She bought quite a few snacks and ate them all the way to the Lin Manor. Please give this invitation to Sir Lin. Hualing came forward and handed the invitation to the guard at the door. After the guard took it, he nodded and walked in. Chu Qingyan raised her head to look at the Lin Manor. It was dignified and there weren't any fancy decorations, giving people a very dignified feeling. She just didn't know what Lin Fengyi looked like. The big ice block kept her in suspense the entire way, so she didn't want to ask. Just as Chu Qingyan's mind was filled with images of a pot-bellied, balding and stout-looking middle-aged official, the guard came out. Behind him was an elderly man, and from the looks of it, it seemed like Chu Qingyan blinked. This was Lin Fengyi. The big ice block in this old man? Young Master Xiao. The old man walked in front of Xiao. I'm sorry, but our family's young Master Xiao's up. Have him wait. The old man walked in front of Xiao. Chu Qingyan sighed. So it was the butler. But why was it so unlucky? Xiao Su nodded. I have a manor in Jiangnan, so I won't disturb you. I'll come visit again in 3 days. After bidding farewell to the people of the Lin Manor, Xiao Su brought Chu Qingyan back. You seem very disappointed? Xiao Su saw her drooping shoulders and asked, "That's right. I really wanted to see what your friends were like." Her tone was depressed. Although the big ice block's temper wasn't strange, it was hard for normal people to get along with him. She originally thought that he didn't have any friends other than Xiao Lai, but when she found out that he had 2 close friends, she was very curious. She always wanted to enter the big ice block's world. The imperial family was so complicated that the big ice block wouldn't let her enter, so she could only know about his past with these 2 close friends. She didn't see them. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't disappointed. First top scorer in the provincial examinations at the age of 11. First top scorer in the metropolitan examinations at the age of 12. First top scorer in the palace examinations at the age of 14. Assistant Minister of Rights at the age of 17. Magistrate of Hangzhou at the age of 18. Magistrate of Jiangnan at the age of 20. Chu Qingyan suddenly heard a clear voice. She looked up in a daze and met the calm gaze of the person above her. Chu Qingyan then realized that he was telling her about his close friend. Then, a trace of disbelief appeared in her eyes. Top scorer? Top scorer? Top scorer? This person is a genius. Chu Qingyan sucked in a breath. It wasn't scary for someone to be the top scorer. What was scary was for someone to be in a stable position. Yes, there aren't many smart people. He's one. When Xiao Su mentioned his good friend, a faint smile appeared in his eyes. The big ice block was an extremely intelligent person. It was rare to hear such high praise from him. However, it also proved that Lin Fingyi wasn't an ordinary person. That was why the big ice block liked him. Then how long has he been a magistrate? He had risen from the top scorer to the top in Jiangnan in just a few years. His knowledge, ability, and methods were not to be underestimated. 1 year. What? Doesn't that mean that he's only 21 years old? Chu Qingyan exclaimed. So young. She immediately waved the image of a fat belly out of her mind. That's about right. He's the youngest top scorer in Sichuan. He's also the youngest magistrate in Jiangnan. Xiao Su nodded. It's true that youths are the most talented since ancient times. Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. Then you also met him in the capital? No. When I was passing through Jiangnan on my way back to the capital, I met him. Xiao Su couldn't help but recall the first time they met. You're the King of England? You're this year's top scorer? When the 2 hot-blooded youths first met, they asked each other for their names. There was a hint of provocation in their tone. However, after 8 years, he had become more introverted. He had also become more mature. Xiao Su pulled himself out of his memories and heard the little fellow muttering, Lin Fingyi, Lin Fingyi. I suddenly feel that this name is very familiar. I remember now. Sichuan's young master Lin Fingyi. He's only 21 years old, handsome and beautiful. People call him Qingfeng Ink Bamboo. Yes, Qingfeng Ink Bamboo. So it's him. Chu Qingyan exclaimed in surprise. Xiao Su frowned. What nonsense was this? Just as Chu Qingyan was about to tell Big Ice Cube about the ranking of the most beautiful men, the people around her suddenly sped up. Their faces were filled with anxiety and curiosity as they watched the drama unfold. They're fighting, they're fighting. Everyone quickly go and see. Hibiscus Pavilion and Fragrant Powder Pavilion are fighting. As Chu Qingyan was standing in the middle of the street, she was almost knocked down by the sudden wave of people. Luckily, the big ice block beside her reached out and grabbed her by the shoulders. They quickly retreated to the side and avoided a disaster. Just as she steadied herself, Chu Qingyan couldn't hold back her curiosity. She pulled one of the commoners and asked curiously, Uncle, what happened? Where are you all going? That old man took a look at Chu Qingyan and the rest's attire before he understood. You all must be from other places. It's normal that you don't know about Hibiscus Pavilion and Fragrant Powder Pavilion. The owners of these 2 shops have been rivals for decades. Today they're opening their shops, and they're even opposite each other. Aren't they stealing customers? The 2 shops' workers are fighting. It's not a big deal. It's common for workers to fight. However, I heard that today, the 2 young masters are fighting. We can't miss out on this. This old man will go and take a look. After saying that, the old man ran off. Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. This body can run so fast. Big ice block, let's go and join in the fun. Chapter 619. The group of people didn't even need to ask for directions. Following the direction of the crowd, they found the territory of the two parties. At this time, there were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Chu Qingyan and the rest couldn't squeeze in at all. Jin Xian pointed to a place. Chu Qingyan nodded and brought the group to the tea house. The room on the second floor just happened to face the 2 shops below. In the middle of the crowd, the 2 groups of people were very obvious. One group was dressed in green, the other in blue. At this time, they were holding things in their hands. There were chairs, brushes, wooden sticks, paper umbrellas, and all kinds of handy things. The scene was very vast, and the most obvious ones were the leaders of the 2 sides. One was dressed in a white brocade robe and had an imposing appearance. He should be a handsome young man, but at this time his clothes were torn here and there. His lapel was already pulled askew, and there was a panda eye on his face. He looked very miserable. The other was a handsome young man dressed in bright purple. At this time, his sleeves were torn and the corners of his mouth were disfigured. There was also a panda eye on his face. He didn't look any better, and was also in a miserable state. The white-clothed young man shouted at the purple-clothed young man. "Hua family cat, why do you always go against my Qin family? I clearly decided to open a shop here first. What do you mean by interfering? Qin family Wang, the road is to go our separate ways. You open your shop, I open mine. What does it have to do with you? You're too immoral to find people to cause trouble. After so many years, you only know this trick? Isn't it too lacking in style?" The purple-clothed young man looked at him with disdain. "Hua family cat, you're too much of a bully." The white-clothed young man felt that this person was simply twisting words and forcing logic. "Qin family Wang, go back to the furnace and be reborn." The purple-clothed young man felt that this person was simply unreasonable. "Apui, I don't believe that I can't teach you a lesson today. Come on, I've been wanting to fight with you for a long time. Qin family's people get ready. Hua family's people go." Thus, the following scene once again fell into a chaotic battle. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded as she watched from above. She pointed at the 2 young masters who were having a good time, and sighed to the people around her. "I can't believe there are people with such fiery temperaments in Jiangnan. If a war of words didn't work, they would go all out." He had originally thought that the people of Jiangnan were gentle and did things at a moderate pace. Today his perception had been shattered. This way of doing things can be considered open and aboveboard. Xiao Su looked at the people below who were locked in a fierce battle, and commented lightly. Chu Qingyan nodded. Compared to those secret schemes, this confrontation on the surface is indeed open and aboveboard. But with such a big fuss, why didn't the local officials come to mediate? Chu Qingyan was a little puzzled. She looked again at the 2 beautiful young men, who were wrestling with each other without caring about their image. Could it be that the background of these 2 families is big enough that no one dares to touch them? "I can't say for sure," Xiao Su said. The 2 of them didn't talk for long before 2 groups of people squeezed into the crowd to watch the show. Second young master. Old master knows that you are fighting with the Hua family again, and has sent this servant to bring you home." The servant in green leaned close to the Qin family's young master's ear, and said loudly. On the other side, the servant in blue also came to the Hua family's young master's side. Master, old master is angry. He wants you to go back quickly, or else you will have to bear the consequences." The Qin family and the Hua family finally stopped fighting. "Hua family cat, just you wait. I will definitely beat your hibiscus pavilion down." Qin family Wang, don't overestimate yourself. In a few days, your fragrant powder pavilion will be closed down. Pay. The 2 of them looked at each other with disdain. They turned their heads and each went to take their people home. The onlookers saw that there was no more drama to watch and dispersed. The Hua family's young master just happened to pass by the tea house. At this moment, Chu Qingyan heard him talking to his servant. "Young master, you are too daring. When you go back, you will be punished by old master to reflect on your mistakes." The servant in blue disagreed. What's there to be afraid of? I have long wanted to beat that Chen family Wang. I hate that smiling tiger face of his the most. It's always in front of me. It's an eyesore. The purple-clothed youth said unconcernedly. Young master, it's a smiling tiger, not a smiling tiger face. The servant in blue wiped the sweat on his forehead. It's all the same. Anyway, I've beaten him up and vented my anger. I have no complaints even if I go home and receive my rod. The purple-clothed youth patted the servant in blue's shoulder and continued with a smile. If father hits me 30 times with the rod, remember to help me take 20 hits. Don't forget, it was me who helped you hide the fact that you miscalculated the accounts a few days ago. Oh. The servant in blue was petrified. The purple-clothed youth let go of his shoulder and swaggered forward in a relaxed mood. At this time, the purple-clothed youth seemed to have sensed something. He stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction where Chu Qingyan was standing. She saw a youth wearing a gauze hat standing in front of the tea-house's windowsill. Although she couldn't see his face, she could feel that the other party's eyes were on her. Chu Qingyan looked at him and saw that there was an extra panda eye on his face. It just happened to be a pair. She couldn't help but smile and nod at him. Looking carefully, this person had a handsome face. The scar on his face didn't affect his appearance, but it was more delicate. The purple-clothed youth frowned and looked at her. He whispered something and then continued to walk forward. Chu Qingyan looked in the direction that the purple-clothed youth left and couldn't help but smile. This Hua family's young master was quite interesting. The fight between the Hua family and the Chen family is really sensational. In more than 10 years, this is the first time I've seen such a big fight. It's a feast for the eyes. Only the Hua family and the Chen family would dare to do such a thing under the eyes of the government. If it were anyone else, they would have been arrested long ago. Which government official doesn't want to protect the two big merchants in Jiangnan? They are still waiting for them to pay taxes. That's right, that's right. After the commotion dispersed, Chu Qingyan heard the comments about the large-scale fight in the tea house. She held the teacup in her hand and pondered. Two big merchants? Why? Do you already have a target? Xiao heard her muttering to herself and couldn't help but ask. I have this thought, but I have to understand the background of these two families first. It's hard to make a conclusion now. Chu Qingyan sighed. No one knows me better than this big ice cube. Leave this matter to Jinling. He will give you a detailed report. Xiao tapped his finger on the table and said lightly. Okay. Then should we go to the bank to look for Jinling and the rest? Chu Qingyan rubbed her hands and looked excited. Xiao glanced at her and finally nodded. The Su family bank was located in the northern part of Jiangnan. It was the only bank in Jiangnan, but at the same time, it was the general office in Sichuan. The other branches had to remit their accounts to the northern part of Jiangnan. Because the northern part of the city was quite a distance away, Jinling had already sent someone to deliver a carriage. Thus, the group sat on the carriage and headed to the Su family bank. Chapter 620. Su Clan Bank. Chu Qingyan sat in the carriage. The moment she opened the curtains, she saw the 4 low-key words. However, the carriage did not stop at the entrance. Instead, it went around the main gate and went to the back gate. To avoid trouble, we're not going through the main gate. Chu Qingyan had just put down the curtains when she heard Xiao's voice. I understand. She knew that he was explaining to her, and her heart felt warm. The carriage went straight to the back gate. After it stopped, Chu Qingyan and Xiao got off the carriage together. At this moment, the small courtyard was already filled with people, all dressed in dark robes. The person in the lead was dressed differently from the others. He wore a hat and had a beard. He looked to be around 30 years old. He stepped forward and bowed to Xiao and Chu Qingyan. Jinling and the stewards pay our respects to Master and Princess Consort. With that, the people in the courtyard all knelt down. Our respects to Master and Princess Consort. Chu Qingyan stared with wide eyes at the person who called himself Jinling. What happened to the handsome man? How did he become an uncle? Xiao looked at Chu Qingyan's expression, and his lips curled. He raised his hand and said to everyone, Rise, there's no need to be so polite. Yes. Everyone replied in unison and got up without any hesitation. Jinling, stay. Everyone else, go do your own things. I'll summon you if there's anything. Xiao Su said to everyone again. Hearing that, everyone retreated in an orderly manner. Master, this way please. Jinling bowed and invited. Xiao Su nodded and led Chu Qingyan and the others to the living room. Along the way, Jinling, who had been walking peacefully, felt a gaze that could not be ignored land on him. His scalp tightened a little. He could guess that it was the young princess consort, because when he knelt down, the princess consort had cast him a look that could be described as one of horror. Finally, they reached the living room. Xiao Su sat on the main seat, and Chu Qingyan sat on the seat below him. Young Xiaohuan in turn had arrived at the Su family bank before them when they entered Jiangnan, so Jin Xian and Hualing were next to them. Jinling held the account book with both hands. Master, these are the accounts for the past 2 years. Please take a look. Xiao Su tapped the table lightly. Jinling understood and placed the account book on the table. Has everything been going well? Xiao Su picked up the teacup on the table and asked casually. The business of the bank has always been very stable, but something happened recently. When Jinling mentioned this matter, there was a trace of difficulty on her face. What is it? Xiao Su was just about to pick up the teacup lid when he heard this. His fingers paused, and his expression became serious. Jinling knew that this matter could not be hidden for long, and immediately reported, some time ago, someone deposited 500,000 taels in our bank. Such a large amount is rare, so the servants handled it very carefully. But this money was placed in the treasury for a few days. When the servants went in to count it, they found that the banknotes, except for the beginning and the end, had all turned into white paper. And this matter was leaked somehow. The commoners said that there was no money in the bank's treasury. Within a few days, the bank's reputation was seriously damaged, and it caused panic among the people. Those depositors came to withdraw their money. How did you handle it? Xiao Su's expression became serious. At the side, Chu Qingyan also had a serious expression. In the bank's business, the most important thing was reputation. Once the reputation was damaged, the bank would not be far from closing down. Jinling continued. Originally, this subordinate had planned to secretly store the money that had accumulated over the past 2 years, but this matter happened, so I could only take it all out and borrow money from other banks. But 2 more things happened. The money that was transferred from Xiangyang was robbed halfway, and the money that was transferred from Xianying was almost robbed as well. Our people tracked down the robbers, but they could not find any information about this group of robbers. At the same time, there were rumors in Xianying and Xiangyang that there was no money in the bank's treasury, causing the commoners to withdraw their money. It was one disaster after another. Fortunately, the major banks issued notices that all depositors who wanted to withdraw money could withdraw as long as they showed their deposit slips. No matter how much money was deposited, the interest would be paid. This more or less calmed down the disaster. Jinling still had some lingering fear when she said this. You did well. Xiao Su nodded. How much did we lose this time? 1 million taels. Although Jinling had received master's affirmation, she still felt a little ashamed. Xiao Su put down the teacup in his hand and turned to ask the person beside him. Qingyan, what do you think of this matter? Chu Qingyan was immersed in her analysis of this matter. Suddenly being called out, she did not hesitate and directly said her thoughts. This matter was obviously planned by someone in the dark. The accumulated money was ready to be disposed of, but coincidentally, someone saved 500,000 taels and the money in the bank was swapped. Following that, rumors spread that the secretly borrowed money from Xiangyang and Xianying were robbed, so Chu Qingyan paused and looked up at Jinling. She said word by word. I suspect that there is a mole in the bank. A mole? Impossible. These people were all groomed by this subordinate. How could they do such a thing? Jinling refuted without thinking. Jinling, don't be agitated. I'm just suspecting. Before this, she had already learned about the bank. The stewards were all groomed by Jinling, and were all capable subordinates. Thus, she did not mind Jinling's protectiveness at this time. Xiao Su looked deeply at Chu Qingyan, then looked at Jin Ling. This matter happened at least 10 days ago. What have you found out? Jin Ling was embarrassed by her master's question. Nothing at all. The person who saved 500,000 taels disappeared without a trace after withdrawing the money. Xiao Su tapped his fingers on the table and finally said, "Prepare to find the mole." Master, Jin Ling was surprised. There are so many coincidences. Haven't you thought about it? If someone had not leaked the news that you were going to store the accumulated money, with the bank's caution, would so many things have happened? You should have thought of it when the money in the bank was swapped. Xiao Su's voice was low, but there was no trace of reproach. Because the person in front of him was his most loyal subordinate, he could not bear to scold her. Jin Ling immediately looked up. If even her master said this, then there was a high chance that there was a mole in this matter. Yes, this subordinate will go investigate immediately. Qingyan, help him. Xiao Su said lightly, but it gave Chu Qingyan a fright. Hualing also looked at Chu Qingyan in confusion. How could this little princess consort help him? Don't be a hindrance when the time comes. All right. Chu Qingyan did not say much and agreed. Since the big ice cube said this, he must have his own plans. Chu Qingyan was a bit tired, so Xiao Su let her go and rest. At this time, Xiao Su looked at Jin Ling in the hall and said slowly, "You don't need to show your true face in front of Qingyan. Give her a stable image. She still has many things to learn from you in the future. I'm afraid that your aura won't be able to control her." Jin Ling did not feel anything was wrong and nodded in agreement. On the side, Hualing almost laughed out loud. Master did not want Jin Ling to show his true face. He was clearly the most handsome of the fierce cavalry, but he hid under a 30-year-old skin. To have such a jealous master, Hualing mourned for Jin Ling. Chapter 621. Chu Qingyan entered the room that had been arranged for her. She saw that young Xiaohuan was already busy in the room. She smiled and called young Xiaohuan in front of her. Have you gotten used to it? Chu Qingyan sat down and asked the person in front of her. Young Xiaohuan nodded. Everything is good. Everyone is very friendly to Xiaohuan. As she spoke, she poured a cup of tea for her mistress. Chu Qingyan thought for a moment. She had already told young Xiaohuan that she wanted to establish her own business in Jiangnan, so she did not hesitate. Is there anything you want to learn now? I will listen to mistress's orders. Young Xiaohuan looked down as she replied. I have discussed with His Highness before. You do not have enough experience. First, you will learn by Jin Ling's side. When the time is right, you will be transferred out. What do you think? Even though this was the result of her discussion with the ice cube, she still wanted to hear young Xiaohuan's thoughts. Xiaohuan likes mistress's arrangement. At this time, young Xiaohuan's eyes were shining. When she entered the Su family bank today, she had a general understanding of the status of the bank in Jiangnan. If she could learn by the side of the bank's head, it would be a blessing from the heavens. Seeing that young Xiaohuan had no objections, Chu Qingyan nodded slightly. But she was a little worried. Jin Ling did not seem to be very satisfied with her. If she shoved someone to him now, would he accept it? Chu Qingyan thought for a moment before deciding to find Jin Ling tomorrow. The next morning, Jin Ling had just passed by the courtyard when he was stopped. Wang Fei, you are up so early? Jin Ling saw that it was Chu Qingyan and bowed politely. Chu Qingyan returned the bow and then said, Where are you going? This subordinate needs to go to the accounts room to check the accounts first. Even though Jin Ling did not know why the little princess would ask about his whereabouts, he still reported truthfully. I will go with you. Chu Qingyan responded without thinking. Wang Fei, this accounting office is not a place to play. If you feel bored, I can send someone to show you around. There are many places in Jiangnan worth visiting. Jin Ling's tone was distant and polite. Of course, Chu Qingyan could sense Jin Ling's hostility towards her. Although the hostility was inexplicable, she did not intend to care about it. She said with a smile, Your Highness, didn't you ask me to assist you in investigating the matter of the switch? Therefore, he went to the accounting office first. Business matters are more important. There will be plenty of opportunities for sightseeing in the future. Jin Ling could not refute the person in front of him, so he could only agree. Chu Qingyan's lips curled into a smile, then she brought young Xiaohuan with her and followed him. Mistress, this Jinda is so serious. Young Xiaohuan complained softly beside her. Chu Qingyan patted her head and said in a low voice, maybe he will be your master in the future. You should build a good relationship with him. Otherwise, you will suffer in the future. Young Xiaohuan's face paled slightly at her mistress' teasing. She looked at the person walking in front of her and subconsciously shivered. They quickly arrived at the accounting office. In the large room, there were more than a dozen tables neatly arranged. Behind the tables sat an accountant. When they saw Jin Ling and Chu Qingyan walk in, they all stood up and bowed. Greetings to Jinda. Yesterday, Jin Ling had led the stewards to greet Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan. They were all from Xiao cavalry. The other people working in the bank did not recognize Chu Qingyan, so when they saw Chu Qingyan behind Jin Ling, most of them looked over. Jin Ling received the puzzled looks of his subordinates and was in a dilemma. He did not know how to introduce this Wang Fei in men's clothing. This one is Boss Su's friend, Chu Qingyan. Please take care of me. Chu Qingyan did not wait for Jin Ling's introduction and introduced herself first. Everyone nodded at her. Xiao Su was the behind-the-scenes boss of the Su clan bank, but outsiders only knew that the boss of the Su clan bank had the surname Su. They knew nothing else. Everything was handled by Jin Ling. After greeting everyone, Jin Ling led the two of them to a room next door. Jin Ling, arrange for a trustworthy person to explain to me the major departments in charge of the bank's operations and the person in charge. Also, I want to see the accounts for the past 6 months. Chu Qingyan said as soon as she entered the room. Jin Ling frowned slightly. He felt that his mistress had only asked the young Wang Fei to participate in the investigation on a whim. He originally thought that the young Wang Fei would not be interested in this matter, but he did not expect her to take it seriously. Little Gongzi, regarding the bank, leave it to me to investigate. If you want to see the accounts, I will have someone send it over. It's okay. I have nothing to do anyway. The more people there are, the more power there is, right? Chu Qingyan said with a smile. One does not hit a smiling person. Because of her identity, Jin Ling could only give the order with a dark face. Mistress, this Jinda's face was as dark as charcoal just now. Young Xiaohuan muttered. Young Xiaohuan, this child, did not know how to check the situation before speaking. Jin Ling had just stepped out of the door when this sentence floated over from behind, causing him to almost trip. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but chuckle. Jin Ling was very efficient. In a moment, the person and the account books were sent over. If there is nothing else, this subordinate will leave first, Jin Ling said. Chu Qingyan nodded. Young Xiaohuan, who was standing on the side, clearly felt a dissatisfied gaze on her. When she looked up, there was no one in front of her. Xiaohuan, have you seen the account books? Chu Qingyan's index finger tapped on the cover, as she tilted her head to look at her. Young Xiaohuan nodded. I saw them when I was young. When mother passed away, the steward of the Fu also asked this servant to help calculate the accounts. Chu Qingyan's eyes revealed a trace of a smile. Then take a look at these account books first and see if there are any problems. Young Xiaohuan looked at the pile of account books pushed in front of her and swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then nodded. Chu Qingyan looked at her surprised and nervous expression and smiled. Then, she turned to the tall and burly man in front of her. The person recommended by Jin Ling was the one who understood the bank the most. He had a square face and a tall figure. Just by standing there, he gave people a kind of oppressive aura, and his complexion was not very good. It seems that Jin Ling found her a great master. What is your name? What are you responsible for? Chu Qingyan leaned back in the chair and asked in a leisurely tone. This subordinate is Ma Yan, responsible for the allocation and recruitment of people in the bank. Ma Yan looked forward, but did not look at the person in front of him. Chu Qingyan nodded slightly. This was similar to the modern human resources department. Tell me about the main areas that the bank is responsible for now. Chu Qingyan said indifferently. The bank is currently responsible for the counter storage, the counter withdrawal, the accounts, the warehouse guarding, the recruitment and allocation of people, the logistics and cleaning. Ma Yin spoke a lot of eloquent words, making Chu Qingyan's ears dizzy from listening. Ma Yin looked at the person in front of him, and a trace of ridicule appeared in his eyes. Suddenly Chu Qingyan stood up. "Young Master Chu, where are you going? This subordinate has not finished reporting," Ma Yin said with a fake smile. He saw the person in front of him give him a smile that was not a smile. "Let's find a place and have a fight." Ma Yin was instantly stunned. "I see that you are not convinced and did not report carefully. Why don't you accompany me to move my muscles? How about it?" Chapter 622. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, not only Ma Yin, but even young Xiaohuan was shocked. Master started a fight as soon as she said so. She was simply too fierce. Ma Yin looked at the thin and weak body in front of him, his eyes showing disdain. Does young Master Chu really want to compete? A gentleman keeps his word. Chu Qingyan slowly walked out of the room, a faint smile hanging on her lips. This Ma Yin clearly knew that she was here to investigate the switch in the warehouse, but he pretended to be deaf and dumb. He was obviously Jinling's confidant, and was dissatisfied with her sudden appearance. However, she didn't like to use her identity as a big ice cube to suppress people, so she wanted these people to be convinced. Xiao Su sat in the study early in the morning, holding the news sent from all over the country. He looked down and flipped through them one by one. Turin, who delivered the letters, was at the side, waiting for orders. At this time, there was the sound of footsteps outside the door, and soon someone came in. "Master, let me tell you something interesting." Hualing walked in energetically, unable to hide the smile on his face. "Let's hear it." The warm spring sunlight shone through the window onto the desk, giving people a comfortable feeling. Xiao Su's mood also relaxed a lot because of this. Hearing Hualing's words, he also became interested. Hualing laughed. The young princess fought with Ma Yin, who was in charge of the staff this morning. "Oh." Xiao Su's eyes revealed a smile. "Why?" Master, you don't care who won first?" Hualing rubbed his head, a little confused by his master's words. "Is there a need to ask who won or lost?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Was there a need to question his little fellow's strength? Hualing and Turin's faces were covered in blood. Was it really good for Master to support the young princess like this? However, Hualing still answered dutifully. "The news I heard was that Ma Yin didn't put the young princess in his eyes and didn't answer her question. So the young princess arranged a fight with him. The result is obvious. Ma Yin was beaten down. And sometimes it's more direct to use violence to curb violence." Xiao Su raised his hand to stroke his chin with a look of approval. Hualing and Turin couldn't help but twitch their mouths. With that, Xiao Su regained his composure. "I haven't interfered with the bank for many years, and some people have begun to disobey me. It's not a bad idea to let Qingyan go down and rectify the situation." The fire spirit and earth spirit looked at each other when they heard this. Master's words had already vaguely expressed that he wanted to reorganize the Xiao cavalry. Apart from the two of them who were always by their master's side, the rest of the people had their own responsibilities and reported in the form of letters. After a long time, they became lax, disloyal, lazy, and self-inflated. They believed that this was what their master meant. However, the master could not do it himself. He was afraid that he would disappoint the subordinates who had followed him for many years. Therefore, he borrowed the young princess to do it. This was the best outcome. Firstly, the young princess Consort needed to be sharpened, and she was capable enough to take on big responsibilities. Secondly, he wanted to take this opportunity to clear the name of the little princess. Thirdly, he wanted to get rid of the dregs and make the Xiao cavalry more cohesive. The plan of killing 3 birds with 1 stone was all in one sentence from their master. Hualing and Turin were deeply moved. Their master was this cunning. At this time, Chu Qingyan looked at Ma Yin, who had been beaten to the ground by her. She patted the non-existent dust off her body, and her lips revealed a faint smile. "Ma Yin, are you convinced?" She knew that the Xiao cavalry had always advocated using their fists to solve things when they could not be reasoned with. That was why she had chosen such a simple and crude method. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. This subordinate is convinced. Ma Yin spat out the dirt in his mouth. and his face was filled with defeat. He thought that this weak bookworm would not be able to withstand a single blow. But who would have thought that he would not even be able to take 10 moves from her? This was simply too shameful, but he still replied with conviction. Chu Qingyan nodded. It wasn't to the point where he could not be saved. You came from the Xiao cavalry, right? Chu Qingyan suddenly asked. Ma Yan patted the grass off his body. When he suddenly heard this, he unconsciously looked at the person in front of him with vigilance. He saw that she had a bright smile on her face, as if she did not feel that there was anything wrong with her question. Yes. He knew that she was his master's person, but he had never placed her in his eyes before. It's nothing, I was just casually asking. Go and change your clothes first and return to the accounts room later. I'll only give you the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. After saying this, Chu Qingyan slowly left. Although Ma Yan felt that the time given was too short, he did not dare refute and quickly left. Chu Qingyan heard the footsteps behind her, and her brows couldn't help knitting together. This was the strength of the Jiangnan Xiao cavalry? If Ma Yan was the representative, then it had to be said that this was a terrible situation. Young Xiaohuan was absent-mindedly looking at the accounts book. When he heard the footsteps and looked up, he saw that his master was fine and let out a sigh of relief. Master, it's good that you're fine. Don't underestimate your master. How's the account book? After finishing her sentence, Chu Qingyan saw that young Xiaohuan had only looked at a few pages. She could not help but frown. Concentrate. I'm still counting on you to help me manage the shop in the future. Young Xiaohuan knew that she was in the wrong. She stuck out her tongue and calmed down to calculate the accounts seriously. Chu Qingyan casually took an account book and placed it in front of her. She casually looked at it, but her thoughts had already drifted far away. When Ma Yan arrived on time, Chu Qingyan started to ask questions again. Ma Yan was more cooperative than before. He answered all the questions and even added on his own. Chu Qingyan nodded in her heart. In that case, there are 4 sets of keys to the storehouse. 2 of them are with Jin Ling, and the other 2 are with Caretaker Shi and Caretaker Li? Chu Qingyan's fingers tapped on the table as she asked with rapt attention. That's right. There are 2 locks in the storehouse that were personally made by Lord Muling. Other than those 2 keys, no one else can open it. There are 2 sets of keys. One set is with Jinda, and the other set is with the 2 caretakers. Usually, when the storehouse is opened, both caretakers have to be present to open it. Ma Yan answered truthfully. You can personally evaluate these 2 caretakers. Chu Qingyan's tone was indifferent. Ma Yan glanced at her. These 2 people were Jin Da's right-hand men. He wondered if young Master Chu was suspecting them by asking this question. Jin Da was very protective of its own people. However, at this moment he couldn't think too much about it. After all, young Master Chu's actions were ruthless and efficient. It was enough to make him have a whole new level of respect for him. You can't judge a book by its cover. Caretaker Shi has been on duty for 8 years. Although he doesn't talk much and seems a little dull, he is reliable and rarely makes mistakes. Caretaker Li's personality is the opposite of Caretaker Shi's. He is more talkative, bold, meticulous, and amiable, Ma Yan said. Chu Qingyan nodded her head to express her understanding. However, she changed the topic and asked Ma Yan again. Including you, how many Xiao cavalry members are there in Su Clan Bank? Ma Yan didn't understand her jumping thoughts, but he subconsciously replied, 45 people. Good, very good. Chu Qingyan replied slowly. When Ma Yan saw the glint in her eyes, his heart thumped. He had a bad premonition. Chapter 623. The person in front of him said good twice, causing Ma Yan to panic. Ma Yan didn't dare to speak. He couldn't help but think back to yesterday when Lord Hualing came for a stroll. He had told them that this young Master Chu wasn't someone easy to fool, but they didn't put him in their eyes. But just now, she had defeated him in 2 or 3 moves, causing Ma Yan to raise his vigilance, not knowing what she was planning. When do you usually train? Chu Qingyan bent her index and middle finger, tapping the table lightly. This is not something that young Master Chu should be concerned about, right? Ma Yan's body instantly tensed up, his sharp gaze looking at the jade-faced youth in front of him. His reaction was within her expectations. She did not mind his unkind tone and smiled slightly. You don't have to be nervous. Actually, I am also a member of the Xiao cavalry, but I am curious about the training of the Xiao cavalry in Jiangnan, so I just asked casually. The other party's tone was gentle, and he even called himself a Xiao cavalry. Ma Yin hesitated for a moment before replying. Usually it is between 6 and 7 in the morning. May I ask which young master Chu is a member of? I am the head cavalry, Chu Qingyan said indifferently. Head cavalry? What kind of name was this? He had been a member of the Xiao cavalry for so many years. How come he had never heard of it? Ma Yin fell into deep thought. If there is nothing else, you can leave first. Chu Qingyan waved her hand. Being waved away, Ma Yin felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, but he still nodded and turned to leave. Earlier on, she had learned from Turin that many of the Xiao cavalry held important positions in the bank, but Jinling was good at financial management, not good at managing people. Now that these Xiao cavalry were in Jiangnan, there was no one to discipline them. They were already like wild horses out of control. If she wanted to find out the mastermind behind the series of events, she needed the help of these people, otherwise it would be difficult to find the mastermind behind the scenes. Chu Qingyan quickly had a plan in her heart, but this plan, she needed the support of someone. After all, these people were all trained by her. Master, you were so domineering just now. You made that man lose his temper. Young Xiaohuan's eyes sparkled with admiration after the man left. You're not paying attention again. Where's the hard work you promised? Chu Qingyan raised her hand and tapped her forehead. She shook her head and laughed. Xiaohuan is very serious. She has already finished reading one book. Young Xiaohuan waved the account book in her hand, rubbed her forehead, and stuck her tongue out. Oh, what did you find? Chu Qingyan didn't expect her to have any insights after reading the account book. She just mentioned it casually. In the end, she saw her touch her nose and said uncertainly, I think this way of keeping accounts is a bit complicated and not simple enough. Chu Qingyan was pleasantly surprised. Tell me about it. Hearing this, young Xiaohuan immediately shared her findings. Chu Qingyan leaned back in her chair and listened quietly. When she heard the last part, her face lit up with joy. Xiaohuan, look at a few more account books and summarize the problems. Who knows, there might be hope for you to become his disciple. Young Xiaohuan hurriedly nodded, and buried her head in the accounts again without delay. Chu Qingyan looked at her seriously pondering, and felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. No one would have thought that she would really pick up a treasure when she picked it up at the beginning. She didn't idle and started to calculate. Compared to young Xiaohuan's clattering on the abacus, she only needed a pen to calculate accurately. This came from the simplest addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division now, but it was very simple at this moment. One by one, the two of them went through the account books. When Jinling walked into the room to check on what the young princess consort was doing, she was surprised to see the two of them scribbling furiously. At this time, Chu Qingyan had also discovered Jinling's presence. She called him in front of her, and then pointed at the account books on the table. There are discrepancies in the data. I have circled them. Have someone check them again. Jinling frowned. How could there be a problem with the accounts? But when he saw that the person in front of him had already flipped open the account pages and pointed at one or two places, Jinling was convinced. He felt uncomfortable inside. How did these people do things? Little Princess had seen through them at a glance. Had all these years of experience been fed to the dogs? Seeing that Jinling had agreed, Chu Qingyan pointed to the person beside her and said, Xiaohuan is quite knowledgeable about accounting. She has discovered some loopholes in your accounting methods. Now the two of you should communicate and try to fix them. Finishing, Chu Qingyan stood and ignored young Xiaohuan's pleading gaze. She smiled encouragingly at her, and then left. If Xiaohuan was really going to be entrusted with an important task by her side, then bravely and calmly overcoming her timidity was the first hurdle she had to cross. If she couldn't give her a heavy blow, she would still cower in her turtle shell. Jinling was the person in charge of the Su family bank. How could this little girl in front of him have the qualifications to discuss this with him? Also, she was young. What could she know? Seeing her panicked and helpless expression, Jinling wanted to flick his sleeves and leave. But little princess's orders were there. He dared to disobey little princess, but he couldn't disobey the master behind little princess. So in the end he could only swallow his anger. Speak, what's the problem? Young Xiaohuan couldn't help but retreat in fright when he spoke. Jinling was puzzled. Was he that terrifying? Perhaps she understood her master's good intentions. Young Xiaohuan took a deep breath and opened the account book in her hand. She stuttered as she explained. Because there is no classification, there are many things. It is easy to make mistakes, so it often leads to repeated accounts. Originally, Jinling was just going through the motions. But when he heard her detailed explanation, his indifferent expression slowly changed. In the end, he also started to discuss with her. Chu Qingyan had already walked far away. She believed that the person she chose wouldn't disappoint her. At this time, she turned and walked towards the courtyard. As soon as she entered, she saw Big Ice Cube leisurely sipping tea and reading a book. "You're back." The calm words were very comfortable to hear. Chu Qingyan nodded. "I'm back for lunch. It's about time, so I'm just in time. I knew you wouldn't mistreat your stomach." Xiao Su moved the book away, and his smiling gaze landed on the person in front of him. "That's why you should hurry up and serve the dishes. I fought with someone today and spent the entire morning looking at the account books. I'm starving." Chu Qingyan puffed up her cheeks and said coquettishly. Xiao Su smiled and ordered the servants to bring the food. At the table, Chu Qingyan saw that he wasn't surprised at all that she had fought with someone. She thought that he knew everything about her in the accounting room. She remembered her plan and couldn't help getting straight to the point. "Big Ice Cube, do you know why I fought with Ma Yin one-on-one?" "I can guess." "Then I can. Do whatever you want. You know what I want to do. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? But I have a request." "Say it." "Since I've decided to do it, I have to do it to the best of my ability. Otherwise, it's better not to do it." "Yes." A certain someone revealed his sharp teeth and smiled sinisterly. Chapter 624. Chu Qingyan was very satisfied with this meal. Although the food was not to her liking, she was still in a good mood. After eating, Chu Qingyan looked up with a smile at Hualing on the side. When Hualing met her gaze, he suddenly shivered. "Hualing, send out the order to gather at the training ground tomorrow. I want to see all of the fierce cavalry in Jiangnan." Chu Qingyan slowly said. Hualing immediately nodded. "Yes." When he walked out of the room, Hualing touched his forehead and found that he was covered in cold sweat. He looked at the sky and saw that it was bright and sunny, but he felt that for the fierce cavalry, it would be dark clouds. But this was also good. These people needed to be taught a lesson. Hualing had a sly smile on his face. Jinling, who was walking over, felt goosebumps appear on his body when he saw his expression. "It's broad daylight. What are you smiling so eerily for?" Jinling glared at him. Hualing also saw him and walked forward to pat his shoulder. His voice was filled with sympathy as he said, "Jinling, you're done for. You've been targeted. What nonsense are you spouting this early in the morning?" Jinling brushed off the hand on his shoulder in disgust. Hualing did not care as he revealed a gloating smile. "Anyway, it's good that you don't disobey the little princess, otherwise you'll suffer." Hearing this, Jinling raised an eyebrow. "Hualing, I haven't seen you in a few years and you've changed. When did you become so afraid of a woman?" "That's because you haven't fallen before. Don't look down on our little princess otherwise." Hualing said this and mysteriously hid his words. He looked at him with sympathy again before turning to do proper business. Jinling did not want to care, but when he thought of how the little maid from the princess had checkmated him in the accounting room today, he felt an indescribable annoyance in his heart. Although that maid was right, this was a matter of face. Jinling's expression changed. He still had something to report to his master, so he walked directly to his master's yard. When he stepped into the room, Jinling immediately saw his master, and the little Wang Fei who was grinding ink for his master at the table. He bowed slightly in greeting. "What's the matter?" Xiao Su looked at the ink in the inkstone. and reminded the person beside him that it was time to add water. Jinling stepped forward and reported, "Master, a new restaurant has opened in Jiangnan. The owner of the restaurant came to the bank this morning and wanted to borrow 100,000 taels. This is not a small sum, and this is the first time this subordinate has seen such a large loan in the bank. Since Master is here, this subordinate came to ask for your opinion. 100,000 is indeed not a small number. Have you checked his background?" Xiao asked. "I've checked. He has a clean background and has been doing business for generations. Basically, it's just a small business. The current head of the family moved to Jiangnan some time ago, and then opened a restaurant." Jinling carefully recalled the investigation of the servant, and then repeated it one by one. "Your Highness, don't you think it's strange? Usually, a newly established restaurant would only need to spend a few hundred taels to support the rent and the artificial ingredients. Why does the owner want so much? Isn't he afraid that he will run away when the time comes?" Chu Qingyan raised her doubts. The bank in ancient times was somewhat similar to the bank in modern times. The common people earned interest when they saved money, but they had to pay interest when they took out loans. The bank's profit came from the interest collected from the loans. Jinling calmly explained the other party's reason. The owner said that he wants to make high-end ingredients only for the upper class to eat. For example, there are fox, leopard, tiger, snake, abalone, shark's fin, sea cucumber, and other rare and exotic treasures that are rarely eaten in the market. Because the imported ingredients are more expensive, so he needs so much money. Chu Qingyan frowned. So he wanted to make such high-end food. If it was in modern times, most of the animals were rare in the country and would be caught and sent to jail. Although Jinling's words were reasonable, for some reason, Chu Qingyan still felt that something was wrong. "Mistress, what do you think?" Jinling continued. "This subordinate thinks that this business can be done, but the amount is too large. If we want to do it, we need to transfer money from other places. We don't have much money left in our warehouse." Chu Qingyan looked at the person who was deep in thought, waiting for him to speak. "Qingyan, tell me your opinion." Xiao looked at her again. Chu Qingyan, who was called out, faced Jinling's surprised gaze and said, "I don't agree with taking this business. Our bank has just suffered a heavy blow and needs to recover first. It's better to do it steadily. If we take a risk, it will be best if we can make money. But if we lose money again, I'm afraid that we won't be able to continue." Jinling was unconcerned. "Wang Fei, it's because our bank has suffered a heavy blow recently that we need this business to recover. That boss promised that if we can make a deal, he will pay 10,000 taels a month in interest and return the principal a year later. That is to say, after a year, we can make a total of 120,000 taels. This subordinate knows that you are worried that the other party is of unknown origin and cannot be trusted. But this subordinate has already investigated this family, so you don't have to worry too much." Jinling had already said so much. She was just a person who came here halfway and had nothing to say, so she didn't interrupt. At this moment, Jinling felt a heavy gaze on him. It was clearly the warm spring of April, but he felt an eerie cold wind brushing past his back. He couldn't help but muster up the courage to raise his head, only to see his master drinking tea attentively. He touched his forehead. Was it his imagination just now? This matter. Xiao put down the teacup and spoke slowly. He successfully attracted the two's attention. "Don't make a decision so quickly. Qingyan, you take charge of this matter." "Master, Wang Fei is not familiar with the transactions of the bank." Jinling couldn't help exclaiming. When Jinling finished speaking, Master's gaze landed again. As expected, it was the ice dregs from before. He immediately fell silent. "It's because she is not familiar with it that she needs to be familiar with it from now on." Xiao looked away and said in a calm voice. "Yes." Jinling reluctantly agreed. "Go do what you need to do." This subordinate obeys. Jinling retreated. When Jinling left the room, Chu Qingyan turned to look in puzzlement at the person next to her. "Why is this matter still being handed to me?" She had already seen Jinling's repulsion towards her just now. He obviously didn't want her to interfere. I haven't been involved in business for many years. If I suddenly interfere, it will change their original business model. You are inexperienced and need to practice. This is an opportunity. If you can't clear the snow in front of your own door, how can you start your own business? Xiao Su looked at her with a serious expression. His tone was different from his usual indifference, and there was a rare seriousness in it. Chu Qingyan pondered over his words and suddenly smiled. Are you planning to let me practice? If Jinling knew that his master was only letting the little Wang Fei practice, he would probably bleed. Don't forget your identity. What identity? The mistress of the Su clan bank. That sounded good. Chapter 625. Chu Qingyan counted with her fingers. She had 3 things on hand right now. The theft of the bank, Jiangnan's Shaolai cavalry, and the restaurant owner's loan. These 3 things added together were enough to give her a headache. She had come to Jiangnan to develop her business. How did she become Big Ice Cube's subordinate? In just one day, she had recruited so many things. It was really enough. At this time, she was sitting in the hall, waiting for Jinling to send her some information. At this time, the person who stepped through the door was Turan. Chu Qingyan looked at the thing in his hand and couldn't help but tease. Sir Turan, when did you become a messenger? I just came over from Jinling's place. I heard that he sent someone to send you some information, so I brought it over. Turan put the thing in front of her and said with a smile. Sorry to trouble you. Chu Qingyan nodded and took out a piece of paper. She was about to start reading when she saw Turan standing in front of her. He seemed to have something to say. Is there anything else? Chu Qingyan put down the thing in her hand and asked calmly with her hands folded on her knees. Turan rarely took the initiative to talk to her. Now that he had come to deliver something and obviously had something to say, Chu Qingyan felt a little curious. Turan nodded and smiled. Little Gongzi, Jinling is the first of the 6 spirits to follow master. He has a strong talent for numbers. After being trained by Shaolai cavalry, he was sent to Jiangnan by master. He single-handedly established the Su family bank, including the shops, fields, and houses. He was only 13 years old at that time. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. To be able to establish the Su clan bank at the age of 13, one had to be extremely capable and courageous. Chu Qingyan now knew where Jiang Yi's arrogance came from. It was innate. However, Jinling is not an arrogant person. On the contrary, he keeps a low profile and does things steadily. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to manage the bank and the properties under his master's name so well. Turan continued. Yes, I can see that. Chu Qingyan agreed. Jiangnan's valiant cavalry. The first batch that followed Jinling has been called back by master. The current batch was arranged to be the guards and managers of the bank after training. However, people will always slack off when they are comfortable. No matter how cruel the valiant cavalry's training was, each and every one of them stuck to their beliefs. In the end, they lost their minds in the happy environment. Turan's tone had a rare melancholy. Chu Qingyan felt that what he said was very reasonable, because after looking around the bank today, she faintly had this feeling. She just didn't expect to hear these words from Turan. Then why did you tell me so much today? She didn't quite understand. Towards Jinling and the Jiangnan's valiant cavalry, Turan suddenly had a wicked smile. Little Wang Fei, please don't show mercy. The situation had changed too quickly. She couldn't understand. After all, we risked our lives to eat and sleep in the open. They are living comfortably in Jiangnan. It's time to reminisce about their past lives. People cannot forget their roots. Turan smiled lightly. He seemed to be in a good mood. Chu Qingyan's lips jerked. She had originally thought that Turan had said so much to plead for mercy for Jinling. Who would have thought that the usually steady Turan would be like Huiling and add oil to the fire? He even dragged the Jiangnan's valiant cavalry into the water. He was so two-faced. After Turan left, Chu Qingyan held the letter in her hand. She couldn't help but laugh. She turned to ask the person next to her. Jean Xian, what do you think? Jean Xian had been standing at the side the entire time. Hearing his master's question, he thought for a moment before answering. This subordinate doesn't know if this subordinate is right. Turandaran's message is that the Jiangnan's valiant cavalry is too weak. The valiant cavalry is a whole. If a weak spot is torn apart, then the teeth will be cold without the lips. So this subordinate wants you to take good care of these people and not become useless. Chu Qingyan nodded and looked with praise at Jin Xian. I find that you are becoming smarter. This subordinate has always been like this, Jin Xian said proudly. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Was he insinuating that she couldn't see it? After sitting in the hall for a while, Chu Qingyan finished reading the information in her hands. The identity of the restaurant owner was so clean that no one could find any fault with it. But because of this, Chu Qingyan felt that something wasn't right. It seemed that she had to make a personal trip. Who is responsible for investigating the restaurant owner? Chu Qingyan went to the accounting room and asked Jin Ling, who was sitting behind the table with a smile. Shi Qing and Li Buoqing. She didn't understand why Master would give such an important task to Wang Fei. Wasn't it more reasonable to give it to someone more familiar with the transactions? But while she didn't understand, Jin Ling still reported the names of the two. Chu Qingyan thought about the two names and felt that they were somewhat familiar. Are these two the stewards who are in charge of keeping the silver key to the warehouse? Jin Ling didn't expect that she would know and nodded. That's right. The reason why they are in charge of keeping the key is because they are reliable and don't see eye to eye with each other. There won't be any collusion between them. Therefore, the investigation of the restaurant this time has been given to them. Jin Ling's explanation made Chu Qingyan nod slightly. Okay, I will make a trip to the restaurant this afternoon. I would like to invite the two stewards to come with me. Okay. Jin Ling agreed. Chu Qingyan said, Thank you. Little Gongzi, you don't have to be so polite. We are all working for Master. Jin Ling smiled. It's just that little Gongzi is inexperienced. If there is a need, you can ask the older stewards. Chu Qingyan felt that Jin Ling's words had a hidden meaning and curved her lips. Before she left, she didn't forget to say, I hope you won't be late tomorrow morning. Jin Ling was choked by her words. His eyes were filled with annoyance as he gave a snort through gritted teeth. At this time, Hualing, who came to watch a good play, saw him wiping the tea stains on the table and looking a bit embarrassed. He couldn't help finding it funny as he sat down on the side. You can't get anything good from the little princess consort again? What nonsense are you saying? Jin Ling glared at him. I have eyes to see, Hualing leisurely said. Jin Ling didn't want to pay attention to him, but he couldn't hold back the doubts in his heart. Master wasn't like this before, so why would he allow the little princess consort to do these things? If it isn't handled well, it will be a loss for the bank. Jin Ling didn't say it clearly, but Hualing knew that he was referring to the public provocation of the Jiangnan fierce cavalry, the investigation of the warehouse, and the loan from the restaurant. Hualing raised his brows and gave Jin Ling a teasing smile. Could it be that you can't see that Master treats the little princess differently? It's because I can see it that I don't understand. Master isn't someone who can't distinguish right from wrong because of beauty. Jin Ling frowned. Hualing heard this and his face turned serious. Jin Ling, if you think that the little princess consort only has beauty, then if you get messed with, I won't make a move to save you. You. Jin Ling was stunned. Actually, for Master, even if the Su family bank is destroyed in the little princess consort's hands, he won't feel any heartache. It's not that he is blinded by lust, but... Hualing said this and paused. He looked up at Jin Ling and suddenly smiled. Jin Ling, take care of yourself. Remember not to provoke the little princess consort. I won't help you collect your corpse. Chapter 626. Jin Ling was very efficient, and the two stewards appeared in front of her in a moment. Please introduce yourselves first. Chu Qingyan leaned back in her chair and looked at the two stewards. As soon as she finished speaking, the tall and thin man on the left cupped his hands in greeting to Chu Qingyan. This one is Shi Qing. Shi Qing introduced himself and then retreated. Chu Qingyan's eyes fell on him. He was tall and thin, and she didn't know if it was because he was malnourished, but his face was pale and his eyes were dull. Looking at his appearance, he really looked a little dull. After Shi Qing finished speaking, The other short and fat man also took a step forward. He was about 30 years old, and had a smile on his face. This one is Li Buoqing, responsible for the daily accounts. If young Master Chu has anything you want to know, you can look for me at any time. Chu Qingyan nodded. She had heard about the characters of these two people from Ma Yan. Seeing them today, one was quiet and one was active. One was tall and one was short, one was fat and one was thin. It was very distinct. After Chu Qingyan looked at the two people, she withdrew her gaze. My name is Chu Qingyan. I usually run errands by Master's side. Master originally wanted to personally go to the restaurant today. You also know that our bank has been involved in a lot of things recently. Master said that it was better to be cautious. But it just so happened that Master had an urgent matter to deal with, so he sent me to go. But I am not familiar with Jiangnan. You must have contacted the owner of the restaurant before coming, so I had to trouble Jinling University to specially invite the two of you to accompany me. Chu Qingyan's tone was a little frivolous and sloppy. Jinxin, who was at the side, glanced over. His master was fooling people again. Thus, he lowered his head and turned a deaf ear. Shi Qing and Li Buoqing seemed to be a little unhappy with Chu Qingyan's words and actions, but because of her identity, they couldn't show it. Their faces still maintained the same expression. Young Master Chu, how can it be troublesome? This is my duty, Li Buoqing said with a smile. Shi Qing nodded his head and agreed. Chu Qingyan stood up. She looked like an idiot if she didn't take advantage of the situation. Her tone was a little urgent as she said, since that's the case, let's go there now. Maybe we can get a free dinner later. It'll be a waste if we don't eat it. I heard that it's delicious. Generally speaking, it was normal to have a drinking party when discussing business. However, Chu Yan had brazenly said it out loud, which made people feel a little disdainful. Although the result would be the same, it was a little degrading to say it out loud. Shi Qing and Li Buoqing didn't say anything, but their impression of Chu Qingyan was already very bad. However, being bad had its benefits. Chu Qingyan walked in front and curled her lips slightly. She was not going to play by the rules. She was going to see if the two of them would give themselves away. Although she had 8 to 9 suspects in the theft of the bank vault, she wanted to eliminate as many as she could. Now she was going to start with these two. Linyue Restaurant. This name is not bad. Chu Qingyan looked at the signboard above her head and praised. I heard that the reason why it's called this is because this restaurant is near the river. When the moon rises, you can look into the distance by the window. Li Buoqing explained with a smile. Chu Qingyan nodded. The scenery is not bad. Maybe we can look at the moon by the window tonight. When the group entered, the restaurant owner was already waiting at the counter. Welcome, I am Feng Xiang. The restaurant owner, Feng Xiang, greeted them warmly. The person in front of them had a general's belly. Because his cheeks were too fat, when he smiled his eyes almost became a slit. However, it still couldn't hide the shrewdness in his eyes. You belong to this restaurant? Chu Qingyan pretended not to know him. Young Master Chu, your presence brings light to Linyue Restaurant. The owner of this restaurant is not talented. I am just a humble one. Then, Feng Xiang became even more enthusiastic. He bowed and raised his hand. This way, please. After learning that you are coming, I have already prepared some food and wine. Let's talk while we eat. Chu Qingyan lowered her eyes, a dim light flashing in them. She had decided to come to Linyue Restaurant on the spur of the moment, but the owner seemed to have known about it beforehand. Could it be that they had been targeted as soon as they stepped out? Okay, thank you, Mr. Feng. I just came to Jiangnan, and I've been drooling over the food here for a long time. Before but even warmed up, I was assigned a task. Fortunately, it's a cushy job, or else I would have quit, Chu Qingyan said half-jokingly. Hearing this, Mr. Feng's eyes narrowed into a slit. I'm sure young Master Chu will want to come back for another meal. That's great, Chu Qingyan also said with a smile. They sat down in a private room. While waiting for their food, Chu Qingyan glanced around the room and asked curiously, there are zither and gyukins here, right? Mr. Feng stroked his beard and said with a smile, since our restaurant wants to do business with the upper class, we have to pretend to be cultured and elegant. Young Master Chu, you should know that it's not easy to do this business, and the cost is too high. However, the girls we invited are all top-notch in music and guqin. Why don't you come and listen to their songs for us and see how they are? See if they are pleasing to your eyes. Mr. Fong emphasized the last two words, and Chu Qingyan smiled knowingly. Hurry up and invite these girls over. I can't wait to see them. Shi Qing sat on the side unmoving. Li Buoqing stroked his beard and watched the conversation between Chu Qingyan and Mr. Fong without batting an eyelid. This group of people came to the restaurant in the name of business, but none of them mentioned it since they entered the restaurant. However, no one dared to expose them. Hearing this, Mr. Fong clapped his hands, and three girls' cheerful voices came from outside the door. Chu Qingyan pretended to be blinded by lust as she stared intently at the entrance. She watched as one person walked in, one after the other. The first person was dressed neatly and covered everything that needed to be covered. The second person was wearing a thin spring shirt, and the last person was wearing a tube top that exposed her navel. She wore a short skirt with a transparent white veil covering her skin, which was faintly discernible. Are they trying to seduce me? A mysterious light flashed in Chu Qingyan's eyes. She knew that the people around her were watching her closely, so she stared at the last girl who walked in with a lustful look and said, "They say that Jiangnan is full of beauties, and it's true. Look at the water spirit. They must be talented. Young Master Chu, you flatter me. Come on, perform well and play a song for young Master Chu," Mr. Fong said to Chu Qingyan, and then turned to the other girls. "Yes," the girls replied in coquettish voices. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan felt like her entire body was going to melt. She rested her chin on her hand and looked intoxicated. When the rest saw Chu Qingyan's expression, they all had their own plans. Chapter 627. While Chu Qingyan listened to the music and looked at the beauties in a daze, the dishes were all served. "Young Master Chu, come and try our dishes." Mr. Fong wanted to help her put the dishes into her bowl. Chu Qingyan declined immediately. "Mr. Fong, you're too kind. I'll do it myself." Then, she picked up her chopsticks and put some food into her mouth. It tasted okay, but it was still far from delicious. Not bad. Jiangnan's delicacies live up to their reputation. Chu Qingyan gave Mr. Fong a thumbs up and tried a few more dishes. Mr. Fong was elated. "Young Master Chu, you're too kind. I'm telling you the truth." Chu Qingyan pretended to be polite. "Come on. Let's drink to this rare opportunity." Mr. Fong wanted to pour wine for her. At this moment, Jin Xian, who had been invisible, suddenly raised his hand and stopped him. "Our young master hasn't been feeling well recently and can't drink." Mr. Fong frowned and stopped what he was doing. He looked at Chu Qingyan and asked for her opinion. Chu Qingyan was also puzzled. When did she feel unwell? How come she didn't know about it? However, Jin Xian had always been a man of few words. Since he had spoken, she didn't want to touch the wine. "You're right. I'm afraid that he drank some wine at Yihong brothel last time, and caused that. We men all know about it, so there's no need to say it out loud." Chu Qingyan smiled meaningfully. Yihong brothel was obviously a brothel. Although Chu Qingyan had said it vaguely, the other three knew that it was just drinking with girls. It was normal for men to talk to each other. When Jin Xian returned to his seat, he almost limped. Their young master was still an unmarried girl, okay? How could they talk to each other like that? Jin Xian lowered his head silently. He didn't hear anything. He didn't hear anything at all. After Chu Qingyan said that, Mr. Fong didn't insist on toasting her. Instead, he changed the tea for her. "Young Master Chu, is it hard in your line of work?" Mr. Fong tried to find a topic to talk about. Chu Qingyan said with a bitter smile. "Yeah. We run around all day and can't even stop to rest. Whenever our young master has an idea, she orders you to do it. She doesn't consider whether it's late at night or early in the morning." Mr. Fong said with empathy, "I thought that our line of work is hard enough. We have to wake up early and sleep late." "Young Master Chu," Chu Qingyan sighed. "It's not easy at all." "Young Master Chu," Mr. Fong said, who was dressed after saying that. Mr. Fong called over the girl who was dressed the least. Peony, serve young Master Chu well. The lady called Peony acknowledged the order, and sat down beside Chu Qingyan. She picked up a pair of chopsticks, picked up some food, and placed it in Chu Qingyan's mouth. Young Master Chu, come let me serve you. Chu Qingyan opened her mouth and took the opportunity to touch the girl's hand. Peony chuckled and said, "You're so annoying." While Chu Qingyan flirted with Peony, Mr. Fong, Shi Qing, and Li Buoqing chatted from time to time. After a while, Mr. Fong saw that Chu Qingyan was enjoying herself, so he excused himself and said that he would leave for a while. Chu Qingyan waved her hand generously. Not long after, Shi Qing also stood up and said that he wanted to relieve himself. Chu Qingyan was so happy that she forgot about her duties, so she generously let him go. Now only Chu Qingyan, Li Buoqing, and a few other girls were left in the private room. Chu Qingyan sipped the tea that Peony was holding. Then she turned to Li Buoqing and smiled casually. "Manager Li, I'm sorry, but this is how we do business at the table. I've always done it this way. Please don't be offended." Li Buoqing replied with a smile. "I won't. Young Master Chu, I admire your carefree attitude." Chu Qingyan thought to herself, "It seems like he's also a smiling tiger. I wonder what he's thinking. Manager Li, I almost forgot about the important business. How was your conversation with Mr. Fong?" Chu Qingyan leaned against Peony and asked casually. It was a big taboo to talk about important business in the other party's territory, with his people around. However, Li Buoqing saw that Chu Qingyan was completely captivated by the girl beside her, and didn't have any scruples. Li Buoqing's expression didn't change, and he still looked healthy. "What Mr. Fong told us is true. What did you find out, young Master Chu?" "I think this Mr. Fong is quite smart and suitable for doing business. The location of the restaurant is good, and the dishes are delicious. He has a good business mind to invite girls to play zither and sing to relieve his boredom." Chu Qingyan seemed to be blinded by lust. She leaned close to Peony and sniffed here and there with an infatuated expression. Li Buoqing nodded with a smile, looking very satisfied. Jinxin, who was at the side, saw that his master was taking advantage of a woman. He couldn't bear to watch. If His Highness knew that his master was so skilled at doing this kind of thing, would he chop off his master's hands? Oh no, he would chop off Peony's hands. After a while, Mr. Fong returned to his room. By now, Chu Qingyan was cuddling with Peony. Li Buoqing had drunk a lot of wine, and was lying on the table dizzily. At this moment, Mr. Fong took out a box from his sleeve, and handed it to Chu Qingyan with a flattering smile on his face. "Young Master Chu, it's our first time meeting, but I feel like we're old friends. Therefore, I prepared a small gift for our first meeting. I hope young Master Chu doesn't mind." Chu Qingyan looked troubled. "I don't think it's a good idea. If other people know about this, they will think that I took bribes. Besides, I can't accept a reward without doing anything. This is only between two friends, and no one will know about it. I need young Master Chu's help with something." Mr. Fong patted her shoulder and winked at her. The fox finally revealed its tail. Chu Qingyan opened the box and saw an emerald necklace inside. She immediately closed the box and put it into her sleeve impatiently. Then she nodded at Mr. Fong and said, "Then I'll take it." "Young Master Chu, you're a straightforward person. What about the loan?" Mr. Fong rubbed his fingers and chuckled. Chu Qingyan patted her chest. "I'll put in a good word for you in front of my master. It's only 100,000 yuan. Don't worry." Mr. Fong smiled so widely that his eyes almost disappeared. "Then I'll thank you in advance, young Master Chu." "You're welcome," Chu Qingyan said with a faint smile. At this moment, Shi Qing entered the room with an apologetic expression. "Young Master Chu, I'm so sorry. My stomach is upset." "It's okay. We're almost done talking. Wake up, Manager Li. We should go now." Chu Qingyan touched Peony's face and said goodbye to Mr. Fong. "It's getting late, and we have to go back. Thank you for your hospitality tonight, Mr. Fong." Mr. Fong walked them to the door with great hospitality. When they disappeared at the intersection, the flattering expression on his face disappeared, and was replaced by a vicious expression. he said to the black-clothed man behind him. Tell master that things went well. Yes. Chapter 628. They reached a fork in the road. Chu Qingyan said to Shi Qing and Li Buoqing, It's still early, I'll take a stroll around. Both of you can go back first. Shi Qing and Li Buoqing saw her anxious expression, and then looked at the brothel in front of them. They understood that she was going to indulge in wine and pleasure, so the two of them bowed and left first. Chu Qingyan watched as the two of them gradually disappeared into the distance. Then she chose a direction and walked leisurely. Jean Xian, did you notice anything amiss at the banquet table? She threw the box in her sleeve to Jean Xian and walked leisurely with her hands behind her back. Upon hearing this, Jean Xin recalled the behavior of the few people at the banquet table. I felt that these few people seemed to be quite normal. There was no eye contact. Caretaker Shi and Caretaker Li seemed to be quite dissatisfied with your performance at the banquet table. They seem to be very displeased with you. Chu Qingyan's lips curved slightly. These three people are hiding their abilities. It's just that I'm not sure if they're friends or foes. Master should already have a plan in mind. Jean Xian felt that every time his master revealed such an expression, she should already have a card up her sleeve. However, she shook her head. It's hard to say. We should only know the answer tomorrow. Furthermore, I still have to investigate other suspects. Sigh. How did I become the life of a laborer? Heaven has taken pity on me. Jean Xian listened to her helpless complaints and couldn't help but laugh. Oh right, Jean Xian. Just now you said that I'm not feeling well and can't drink. Which eye of yours saw that I'm not feeling well? Chu Qingyan thought of this and couldn't help but turn to him suspiciously. At this moment, Jean Xian couldn't laugh anymore. The last time when we were in Fu City, His Highness had already instructed us to take good care of you and not let you drink. He said that once you drink, you will go crazy. Hence, for your reputation, we must stop you from drinking. Chu Qingyan looked embarrassed. There's actually such a thing. Jean Xian added. Today when we left the bank, His Highness specially sent someone to give me instructions, so I can't disobey. Chu Qingyan glared at him. Who's your master? She only heard Jean Xian reply. You are this subordinate's master, but this subordinate is receiving His Highness' monthly allowance. Chu Qingyan choked. Jean Xian, when did you start being so sharp-tongued? Why didn't I know about it? Thank you, master, for your praise. I have always been like this. Jean Xian replied unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan snorted and continued to walk forward. When they arrived at a restaurant, Chu Qingyan turned around and walked in. Master, didn't you just eat? Jean Xian was puzzled. The food just now was too hard to swallow. Saying that it was delicious was just polite words. Besides, you haven't eaten yet, right? Let's go, I'll take you to eat authentic Jiangnan food. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head when she thought of the food she ate at Linyue restaurant. This restaurant's business was very good. When the two of them entered, there was only one table left. The waiter led the two of them over. Waiter brother, what signature dishes do you have here? Give me 5 or 6 dishes. Chu Qingyan didn't look at the menu and directly ordered. The waiter acknowledged and immediately left. Not long after, the waiter brought a pot of tea and filled their cups. Chu Qingyan casually asked, Waiter brother, your restaurant's business is really good. I just came to Linyue restaurant and found that the business there was very quiet. It can't compare to yours. When the waiter heard this, he said with pride, That's because our chef is a famous Jiangnan chef. Linyue restaurant can't compare. Besides, I don't know what their boss is thinking, opening Linyue restaurant in that kind of place. It's not lively and the scenery is not charming. I heard that they want to make rare dishes, but without a good chef, no matter how good the ingredients are, it's useless. This has become a joke in our food industry. As soon as the waiter finished speaking, someone called for him, and he immediately left. Jean Xian looked at his master, who seemed to be deep in thought. He understood that his master was secretly investigating. At this moment, in the lively hall, there were all kinds of discussions. You should know that the Hua family and the Chun family fought over business 2 days ago. I heard that the young master of the Hua family was beaten several times by the old master of the Hua family. He didn't go out these 2 days because of this. He can't get up from his bed. After the first customer finished speaking, everyone burst into laughter. I didn't see the young master of the Chen family these 2 days. I heard that he was punished to reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors. The second customer's tone carried a hint of schadenfreude. The Hua family and the Chen family are fighting for territory, customers, and talents. They have a deep grudge. It's not like you don't know. The third customer shook his head. Hearing the discussions around her, Chu Qingyan remembered that when she first arrived in Jiangnan, she saw the 2 groups of people fighting. Because of the delay in the bank, she didn't have time to investigate the Hua family and the Chen family. Everyone, what's the background of the Hua family and the Chen family? Why did I hear people talking about them along the way? Chu Qingyan asked with a face full of curiosity. Hearing this, the customers looked at Chu Qingyan. Seeing her outstanding appearance and sincere attitude, they didn't suspect her. The first customer stroked his beard and said, "Little brother, you shouldn't be a local. It's not surprising that you don't know." The Hua family and the Chen family are the 2 richest families in Jiangnan. The 2 families have always been fighting for the position of the #1 business in Jiangnan. Under their name, they are involved in rouge and face powder, silk and satin, pastries, wine shops, and so on. The Hua family is a true 3-generation rich family. The Chen family only started to rise in the past decade or so. I heard that the Chen family has connections in the palace. That's why they can rise so quickly. The second customer continued the first customer's words. The second customer smiled. "It's all hearsay. We're not very clear about the real situation. We're just talking about it to satisfy our curiosity. Thank you for clearing my doubts. I just arrived in Jiangnan the day before yesterday, and happened to see the Hua family and the Chen family having a conflict. That's why I'm curious. Do you know what kind of people the young master of the Hua family and the young master of the Chen family are?" Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. The second young master of the Chen family, Chen Mingyi, is now 18 years old. He's more impulsive. However, his elder brother is a powerful character. His name is Chen Mingluan. He's only 20 years old. I heard that during the wine competition last year he poached a wine master from the Hua family and defeated the Hua family. He became the shame of the Hua family for a time. As soon as he finished speaking, the second customer smiled and said, "That's true. The young master of the Hua family, Hua Xiuli, is not easy to bully. I heard that on that night, he beat up the traitorous wine master, and even smashed a few barrels of the Chen family's aged wine." The old master of the Chen family lamented. Chu Qingyan felt that this young master of the Hua family was really quite interesting. But what's interesting is that the person in Hua Xiuli isn't a young man but a lady. The first customer chuckled as he stroked his beard. Chu Qingyan was surprised. The person in Hua Xiuli was actually a lady? She thought of the purple-clothed youth who fought with Chen Mingyi. She didn't expect that he was actually a lady. Chapter 629. Chu Qingyan and Jean Xian stayed in the restaurant for more than 2 hours and heard a lot of news. Although it was still uncertain, Chu Qingyan had a general impression of Jiangnan. Because they still had to wake up early tomorrow, Chu Qingyan did not stay for long and brought Jean Xian back. When she returned to the courtyard, she saw Hualing waiting there. "Little Gongzi, master is waiting for you." I'll go over now." She did not have time to change her clothes as she walked over to Big Ice Cube's room. Once she entered, Chu Qingyan walked over to the table and poured herself a cup of water. She gulped it down and then asked the person sitting at the head seat, "Big Ice Cube, what are you looking for me for?" Seeing her drink 2 cups of water, Xiao raised his brows. "What did you eat tonight?" "I ate a lot, but there was a dish of shredded bamboo shoots with pepper. It was very spicy and it left a rich aftertaste." Chu Qingyan smacked her lips and then drank another cup of water. Xiao did not continue on this topic. "What are the results of today's investigation?" "There's already a preliminary result, but it can only be confirmed tomorrow. I can't tell you now. If it's not what I think, then it would be embarrassing." Chu Qingyan stuck her tongue out at him. Her plan was based on whether or not something would happen tomorrow. If it happened, then she could successfully eliminate 2 suspects. But if it didn't happen, hey, Xiao Su had always been accommodating to her little schemes. Xiao Su prepared to get up, but he smelled a faint fragrance in the air. He frowned and turned to walk towards Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan felt that it was about time. She should go back to wash up and sleep. Just as she was about to get up, a figure suddenly stood in front of her like a wall. Big ice cube. Do you know that people can scare people to death? Chu Qingyan took a step back. When she saw the person in front of her clearly, she patted her chest lightly and spoke with a hint of complaint in her voice. What's that smell on you? Xiao Su's tone was heavy, but she could not tell whether he was happy or angry. Chu Qingyan pulled up her clothes and sniffed here and there. She was confused. There's no smell. Then she realized that Big Ice Cube did not smile. Chu Qingyan touched her head, and then thought of something. She smiled slyly. I know, it's that peony. Today, I went to Lin Yu restaurant. To confuse me, Mr. Fong asked a beautiful girl to accompany him. I probably got it at that time. It's a night, the smell should have faded. I didn't expect Big's nose. Big Ice's nose. I didn't expect Big's nose's nose. Xiao Su's face immediately darkened. Chu Qingyan raised her head after she finished speaking and saw a big black face looking right at her. She shuddered. Was the Big Ice Cube angry? Because she said he had a nose. She didn't call him a dog. Should she explain? Just as she was hesitating, a sentence came from above. Go back and wash up. Change out of these clothes. Don't wear them. Right now. The cold words were like ice cubes smashing into her heart. Chu Qingyan was so scared that she immediately responded. Yes, big boss. Then, she disappeared like a whirlwind. Xiao Su looked at her fleeing figure and snorted. She was obviously a girl, but she always flirted with other girls. Yesterday, it was young Xiaohuan. Today, it was Peony. Xiao Su felt a headache coming on. As soon as Chu Qingyan entered the room, she collapsed on the bed. Young Xiaohuan was already waiting in the room. When she saw that her master had returned, she went to greet her. Master, do you want to eat supper first or take a bath first? I'm not hungry. Let's take a bath first. Chu Qingyan stretched, then cleaned herself up in the bathtub that young Xiaohuan had prepared. When Chu Qingyan was wringing her hair with a towel, she saw young Xiaohuan tidying up the clothes she wore today. Her hand paused. Xiaohuan, don't wear that set of clothes. Throw it away. But master, it's your first time wearing this set today. Young Xiaohuan was puzzled. Chu Qingyan was also puzzled. This is His Highness' intention. Young Xiaohuan nodded. Since it was His Highness' intention, then His Highness had a reason. Unfortunately, they didn't know that this time, His Highness had no reason to follow. I wasn't here in the afternoon. Did everything go well? Chu Qingyan asked with a raised eyebrow while wringing her hair. Young Xiaohuan replied. Everything went well. Jinda also came over a few times. Although he doesn't like to smile, we discussed a lot of issues. Xiaohuan found that he's quite receptive to suggestions. That's good. Xiaohuan, it's been hard on you. You have to look at the account books during the day and serve me at night. Bring Xining over in a few days. I miss her a little. Chu Qingyan let go of her hand and wrapped herself in the brocade quilt. Not only was she thinking about Xining, but she was also thinking about her parents. She wondered if they were doing well in Liancheng. It's not hard on Xiaohuan. My life is very fulfilling now. If it weren't for Master, I'm afraid Xiaohuan wouldn't be able to do what she wants to do for the rest of her life. Young Xiaohuan smiled at her gratefully, then walked out with her clothes. Do what she wants to do? Chu Qingyan was a little emotional when she heard these words. The thing she wanted to do most in her life was to stay by Big Ice Cube's side for as long as she could. Although she was a little disappointing, this was really what she wanted to do the most. Starting a business and becoming stronger were just additional things. As she thought about it, she fell asleep. The next day, when dawn arrived, Chu Qingyan was already standing on the training ground waiting for everyone. She rubbed her eyes and yawned. She really had a hard life. From the moment she arrived in Jiangnan, she couldn't rest. But she raised her head and looked at the sparse Jiangnan fierce cavalry standing in front of her. She couldn't help but hold her cheeks. These people also couldn't let her rest. It seemed that she could only make them restless today. Jean Xian, what time is it now? Chu Qingyan asked faintly. It's 3:15 in the morning. Jean Xian looked at the sky and replied. How many people are here? Chu Qingyan continued to ask. Although the number of people in front of them could be counted on one hand, and could be seen at a glance, Jean Xian still answered dutifully, 8. His master was probably angry. As for the 8 people standing on the training ground, they were basically looking at the jade-faced scholar with hostility. Just this kind of person, what right did he have to order their fierce blade mounts? And to make them come to the training ground so early in the morning? This joke was too big. Very good. How many people are here? Chu Qingyan ignored the mockery on their faces and continued to ask. 45 people should be here. 5 stewards, 20 guards, and 20 guards. Jean Xian replied. Chu Qingyan smiled slightly. No, it should be 46 people. Jean Xian frowned when he heard this. Then, as if he remembered something, he suddenly realized. Yes, your subordinate calculated wrongly. Chu Qingyan leaned against the tree trunk. Her posture relaxed. Her words were light and unimportant. Then let's wait for the rest of the people. When they're here, we'll start. Then she stood to catch up on her sleep. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.